Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Hello and welcome to TrekChatz, a first-time Star Trek watch podcast, hosted by Chats, a television podcast. I am Ensign Alan Ibrahim. Hello, good evening, welcome. Come to the ship. We have a replicator full of snacks. I'm joined by number 2, Magellan. Welcome.
Hey, I like that you gave us both a serious demotion.
Yeah. We can't. Well, people promote and change roles in this season of TNG. They don't necessarily all go up. Some
True.
of them are side grades.
Somebody has to fill in those bottom tier roles as number 2 and ensign.
Let's be real. We both want to be Sonya at the end of the day. Let's be real. I want to spill coffee on Picard.
I really thought she would be more of a character, and unfortunately, they were like, we're done.
Every time there's a new side character that I like on this show, I'm like, is it? No.
I thought Geordi was going to get like a cool girlfriend, but TNG
No,
doesn't want to give me the show that I want to watch. They want to give me a show that I want to watch that's different.
A different show that I want to watch.
Yeah.
If you're new, welcome. TrekChatz is a show where my friend Magellan and I, my best friend, let's be honest, watched Star Trek The Next Generation for the first time. This was inspired by several months ago. We watched the DS9 pilot over on our Patreon, which is patreon.com/chatspod. We have a tradition over there where every year, the week after Christmas, we watch another Star Trek pilot in an effort to see which one is the good one. Turns out so far all of them have been the good one. And we watched DS9 and we said, oh God, should we watch DS9? But first, we must go back to the adventures of Picard, Riker, Troy, and company in Star Trek The Next Generation. And so we're coming at this from a sort of young, hip, hot millennial perspective. First time watching these episodes. And it's been 3 months since we've convened on the holodeck to talk about Star Trek. So, Magellan, welcome back.
Thank you.
How have you been in the past 3 months?
I've been good. I've been just kind of hanging out in holodeck programs of my favorite dime store novels. Just getting to know all the characters, having chats with them, that kind of stuff.
Just flip the genders or flip the gendered content a little bit. Not the genders, but the gendered content. And instead have it like the female captain goes to her steamy romance novels
right.
in the holodeck.
That would be great.
I love it.
Really fun.
It also makes me realize how similar noir is to romance. Like, it's all the same. It's just a different coating of paint.
Right. We just all want to feel sexy in some way.
And that's what I've been doing. I've been visiting the newly renovated bar that we have on the Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
I have the name of it somewhere. It's not the down
10
below.
forward.
10 forward. Fantastic. I've been hanging out on the 10 forward with Gwyn, and she has a lot of mysteries and secrets, and I don't know what her deal is, but she does make me feel nice, and that's enough for me.
Yeah.
So we're here, though. We're talking. We watched Star Trek The Next Generation Season 2 in its entirety in the past 3 months. All 22 episodes of it, I believe it was.
That's right.
We're here to talk about them. So people should already know our history with Star Trek. If you haven't listened to TrekChatz 01, I highly encourage you to, just so you know where we're coming from. We're not going to reiterate all of that, but like I said, we are first-timers here. And yeah, there was a lot of new things in Season 2. We can talk about what the new things are first. We've got some new characters on the ship, a shuffling of the cast, so to speak. We also have new outfits, new positions, and a whole new coat of paint. And a slightly different writing team. So, first off, new people. I want your takes, Magellan. We lost our doctor, Dr. Crusher, our fave.
Beverly.
Our blue jacket coated Beverly Crusher departed, apparently on very bad terms with the production team.
Yeah.
She quit. She was fired.
She was fired.
She was fired.
Yeah.
Yes. because the actress was, I think, from what I've seen from the little clips of the documentary that William Shatner did about this, Trouble on the Bridge, it sounds like they didn't treat her character very well or the actress very well, to the point where, like, you know, I was also watching, maybe I'll link this in the show notes, but there was a recent video essay by Jesse Gender, who's a great Star Trek-centric YouTuber, and it was about Star Trek TNG and sexuality. It was like a sexual history of Star Trek TNG. Yeah, fantastic essay.
I can't wait to watch it. Did you watch the whole thing? It's like 6 hours long.
So I watched it while it premiered, so I caught it in the middle and watched like the middle 2/3 or something.
Okay, gotcha.
So I watched a lot of it, but not all. I just had it on. But yeah, in that section she talks about Crusher's actress leaving and like the way that she was like, hey guys, I really know how to write and direct, and I would like to start maybe directing things. And they're like, we don't know if we can fit you in. Meanwhile, Jonathan Frakes has no directing experience, and one of the people on the team took him under his wing and was like, I'm going to teach you how to direct, and bam, you get to direct now. Yikes. And like, no offense, I love Jonathan Frakes. I actually think he's a good director. Clockstoppers is an underrated film, but it is. What can I say?
It is. You're right.
But also, like, give everybody a chance, guys. It's the 80s. Right. It's going to come up a lot. Unfortunately, Star Trek The Next Generation still hasn't figured out just exactly how to write women yet. It doesn't seem like they know much beyond, like, can hold baby, can have boob, and can fall in love. Those are the three things that women can do on Star Trek, it seems like. And can diagnose people and be horny. But those, you know, are also feminine-coded things. So... with the departure of Beverly Crusher, we get Dr. Pulaski, a controversial character. A lot of the fan base, we're talking a little bit here on TrekChatz about the difference between the fan base and us, and the difference between like the popular opinion of these characters.
Do people not like Dr. Pulaski?
I think there's a sentiment. It's mixed, right? There's a sentiment that Dr. Catherine Pulaski is an annoying addition because, like us, people really liked Crusher. And they feel like she's unnecessary. She's a 1-season addition. And I think a lot of my takes on TNG come from the fact that I know that this was a real show that was made and had a lot of issues in its production. So when things are like awkward or bad, as we're going to talk about, I'm like, yeah, you didn't know what you were doing yet. Or you had issues behind the scenes. You had a whole writer's strike at the finale.
Right.
So I acknowledge that with Pulaski. And I think Diana Muldaur does a shockingly good job. As this one-off character who starts off really one-dimensional, but goes on to have a like full-bodied character arc in one season, sort of in the background of other plots, but that allows her to come out at the end as like, you know, that good old Dr. Pulaski. And honestly gave me more McCoy vibes than even Crusher ever did.
Yeah, definitely.
Which was great.
Yeah. I think the thing that was unfortunate about how Crusher was introduced in season 1, and we know that she comes back next season, right? Or pretty soon. So we know that she comes back, and I hope that this gets, you know, readjusted. But in season 1, so much of her character and the way she interacted with other people was, I'm Wesley's mom, or I have a crush on Captain Picard. And Pulaski is not defined by those things. I can't really think about a male character that she's defined in terms of, which is refreshing. And so she ends up spending a lot more time being like, I am doctor of ship. And I do think you're right that they end up leaning on writing her in that sort of like, I'm the cold medical person a la McCoy from TOS. But it's like fun to have that sort of character here in TNG because everybody is so like touchy-feely and warm with each other that for this person to be like, this is, what are you talking about? That guy's a robot. It's like pretty good. And it's fun to see her come around to like the way that the Enterprise characters treat each other by the end of the season. So I really liked Dr. Pulaski. I think as a matter of principle, I want to see Dr. Crusher return. I wish that the show was like capacious enough to include both of them because I do think that they're distinct characters that would have distinct opinions about medicine and xenobiology and what it means to be in this role on the ship. But you know, it is what it is, I guess. We get what we get. But I really liked Pulaski. And I also thought it kind of gave Wesley, it was weird at first for Wesley to not have his mom around. But it kind of gave Wesley space to be written 5 years older than he was written in season 1, I think. As less of like a preteen and more of like, I'm a teen as the sidekick for these adult guys who are teaching me how to be an adult. So it kind of like aged up Wesley's plots in a way that I thought was nice.
For sure. Not having Gates McFadden there to like be his mom, not having Crusher there to be his mom. You're like, okay, now Wesley has to be a character. He can't just be defined by, now he has no relationship to any family on the ship, so he has to like relate to Starfleet, relate to Picard, to Riker, to Worf, and he gets like some great development. I think we can also talk a bit here about like how some characters have and haven't changed, and I think my main takeaway with Crusher in here is I still don't fully like get the Wesley hate. I know like the performance is a little bit tough. Not at all. And I don't want to go into this podcast, and I think I probably said this in the first one, but I don't just want to be in here to say like everything the fandom says is wrong. I'm not trying to do that. I want to like fairly critique this season and this series, but like I don't know, Crusher like isn't that annoying. There are episodes when he falls in love because that's what you do as a teenager, is you fall in love, and they don't belabor it too much, and he's not like that awkward. And otherwise, everybody kind of treats him like, you know, a young adult, and they give him things to do, and he does them pretty successfully. You know, he's not even like woefully incompetent or rude or anything like that. Yeah.
And I think he ends up serving a role on the show where he kind of draws a side out of characters like Picard or Riker that other characters can't access, where he is able to ask them questions about like, well, why did you lead a life like this? Why do you feel this way? Why are you hiding this thing? Or why do you do that? Or how do I, you know, become a leader? And I don't know. I really like Wesley and his role, and I think Will Wheaton's doing a great job. I can understand how, you know, there might be this kind of feedback loop when you're having conversations with other fans over the course of years and years and years, where it's just like, yeah, Wesley's kind of annoying. And then the next person is like, yeah, Wesley, pretty annoying. And then all of a sudden enough people are saying it that everybody's reinforcing that opinion, and it becomes like the right opinion, just by virtue of the social aspect of being in a fandom. But I think at worst, Wesley is like a kid who's like vaguely annoying. And maybe you're not interested in seeing a kid character. I don't know, but I like him. I think he's good. And I think the Wesley centric plots are some of the stronger plots in the season.
What I came to appreciate the most about him in this one is, you know, he's on the bridge more, and they give him a little bit of like control, but most importantly, like he is actively pursuing a career in Starfleet. And so we get to see not only what the Enterprise has to do as a like commissioned ship in Starfleet, like they have to do practice exercises and they have to help out ambassadors, but also Wesley has to like take classes and do training, and he has friends and students. Like he has his own little storyline, you know, about like getting better and like understanding what he wants to do within Starfleet, like what role he wants to take in. It seems like he's leaning towards a science career, and I think that gives him like a lot of interesting things to do that we really explore. Like this season overall, I would say, is a stretching of the legs. It's, you know, expanding the scope of what TNG is about and what the characters are able to do and explore, and what the world is also like, what parts of the world we're able to see. So I really liked that, and like Wesley's stuff definitely tied into that for me.
Yeah, I think we have to talk about the other major character addition of season 2, which is Guinan, who's awesome. Like Whoopi Goldberg just eats up every scene that she's in and is the most interesting person in the room always. And there's no like, the thing that's funny to me is we've seen ahead, we watched whatever that was called, the season 3 finale and season 4 premiere in order to watch the DS9 pilot because it's the context for it. and Guinan's in that. And so I've seen her in the show before. So to me, it's like, whoa, this like really cool character that's always giving people advice. Like, we're going to get an introduction to her that explains, why she has this relationship with everybody. And no, it's just, hey, welcome to season 2. Sometimes we go to the bar and the bartender has some really smart, mysterious things to say. Anyway, which is kind of funny.
Guinan is a character that you like, and also the introduction of 10 Forward are just things that, once again, every other sci-fi franchise has like just full on cribbed from TNG. Like bar on the ship, every show does that. I love having a bar on the ship. 10 Forward doesn't serve it serves alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages, so like they can have Wesley there. And Guinan, like, we learned some interesting background things about her in this season. But even just from her first appearance, I was like, wow, I love the idea that she's just been here and we didn't see her do stuff, but she was around, and it makes sense that she's here, and she doesn't belabor her presence. She just gives good advice, helps people come to terms with certain things that they already know. Like, she's, the group's therapist. And
yeah, and
in a way,
I will say, it's important to acknowledge that like this is a racist trope. This is like a magical Negro trope that's happening here, and that's problematic. And I wish the show is gonna like explore more from her perspective later, but I think acknowledging that trope and the implications of it, I think you can still recognize that like Whoopi Goldberg is giving a really engaging performance, and she's like funny, and the dialogue is really sharp. So it's still entertaining. But it's also important to say that like that is the trope that's operating here with Guinan.
In the same Jessie Gender video, she talks about Guinan briefly and has on a like fellow YouTuber who's like a young black woman, and she says the exact same thing, which is like, yes, they're doing that stereotype, and she does a lot with the material and is able to ascend beyond the stereotype into a character that feels fleshed out and interesting enough for the brief time that she's there. They can do better, and they all go on to do better with other characters, in future franchises, as I understand. We eventually get a black captain, and say about that what you will. But like Guinan as on the page here, I think we both really enjoyed, and I was really happy to see her. Yeah. I had not spoiled for myself the whole Q relationship thing. And that was kind of fun, and how like subtle it's dropped, because the thing about watching TNG that I'm also realizing, and this gets into my broader point about this season, is like TNG is just a show you watch. It's not a show where you look up, like, I understand skip lists. We here at Chats don't really endorse skip lists, but I understand why people use them. You have limited time and you want to watch a lot of stuff. It's just a show that you can just put on your TV and go cook and go do a little bit of work and go do homework. And like I probably streamed half of the season for our Discord, which you can access by just contacting us, and if you ask nicely, I'll gladly invite you. But I was like watching with people, and I was like, this is just like fun. I don't need like episodes where like this is an important one, and like learning the Guinan thing, the fact that it's so quickly just said that like she's probably hundreds of years old, and then they move past it, is great. I didn't need like a Guinan backstory episode. I just love that about this season, is that they drop meaningful things. Like the Borg, for example, are also introduced in season 2, and we know from what we've seen of like the beginning of TS9 that like the Borg matter, but like the way the Borg are introduced is just like, hey, here's some guys you can't beat. Don't worry about it right now. Just put that in your pocket. To them
in about a season and a half. See you later.
Yeah, and that's fascinating from a storytelling perspective, that like these people, it's not to say they were thinking about like we have to craft these elegant long-term arcs, but like, I don't know, it makes me think that there is a little bit more consideration to this other than just 110% story of the week. But it's fine and good that they do that as well. Like, you can turn on any particular episode of TNG and just be like, okay, who's in this one? All right, this is a Guinan episode. Great. Like, that detail about her doesn't like radically transform what we know about the show, but it's just like, oh, that's useful. Cool. Nice to know. Thank you. So I really love that.
It's an interesting show to, I think the further we get away from this era of television, the more I think about it and the more I wonder about the merits and the drawbacks of this time where kind of more procedural or, like sitcoms or things like that, where there's a situation of the week that our characters are engaging with. The characters, how they act, what they're going to say and do, more or less, where that was kind of the dominant form of storytelling. And it raises the question of, like, how do you interact with a show like that now when you have instantaneous access to every single episode of it? And it's interesting because, like, I think I can understand the skip list mentality with the mentality of wanting to, like, binge something. If your goal is, I just want to get the best episodes that are most consequential to the plot, and I want to move through it. And it's sort of different philosophy to say, I want to have this show be like a fixture of my life for a short period of time, which is how you were watching it, where it's like, okay, for this next, couple weeks or month or whatever, I'm going to watch a few episodes a night or an episode a night. And I sort of know what it's like to lock into a Star Trek episode. Mm-hmm. I think that ultimately is, like, the most fun way to watch it, because as someone who binged basically the whole season in the last, like, 5 days or whatever, it suffers from being watched that way, I think, because a lot of episodes are just, like, remixes of the themes and ideas and character beats of other episodes. Yeah, that's just something I'm thinking about, that how you approach the actual, like, experience of sequencing out episodes and how you watch them, I think affects the extent to which you enjoy them, because you're meant to, I think, have one of these at a time and be like, yum, that was great. Okay, I'll come back to this in a couple days or in a week or something like that.
Right. It's like and you are someone who's also, like, binged sitcoms before. I know, like, was it last year or 2 years ago you watched all of Malcolm in the Middle in, like, a couple weeks? Because, like, and that's a show that extremely, like, show you can have on, and you don't have to worry about, like, long-term plots. I think what my experience watching TNG, especially season 2, did for me was it gave me a much greater attachment to individual moments and episodes, which is why I felt better about the finale than I'm sure 90% of the fan base did. Is because I was like, oh, I just watched that. That's awesome. I got the reference without looking it up. And, like, it's a bad clip show. I'm just going to tell you right now. It's like a very low rent clip show. But I still felt so good about being like, that's Encounter at Farpoint. And, like, the shows that we talk about, the serialized dramas that take over so much of television now that are so binge focused, came out of this type of storytelling, where you just drip feed a little bit about Guinan, about Wesley, about Riker's dad, and then overall it forms this picture of the series that, like, different people can jump on at different points and have completely full-bodied experiences with the series. You don't have to have watched everything. But in a way, it's been rewarding to, like, sit and like sip each one of them, so to speak. Watch one, maybe two a night. And I fell off for a little while, and I ended up watching, like, 6 or 7 in the past, like, couple days. But, like, overall, I got to watch season 2 in a very measured pace, and I thought it was perfect for that. And, like, by the end, I was like, I told you, like, I felt a deep emptiness in my heart that, like, until we record this episode, I can't watch more Star Trek. Like, I cannot ruin the next part for myself. So it's great also that we get to record this, because I'm going to go start season 3 right after this. But, giving ourselves 3 months, you also, like, have the opportunity to split it up in different ways and, like, watch a couple over dinner or rewatch them. Like, that's why we take these huge breaks, is also so we can watch other stuff. Because, like, and this is my last point on this, really, really, but my friends have in the past couple of weeks, as I've been watching these last couple episodes, are like, oh, have you finished Severance? Have you finished this, like, documentary that I linked to you? And I'm like, guys, I live in Star Trek right now. I'm on the Enterprise. You don't talk to me. Like, all I do is watch Star Trek. And, that's fun in itself as well. Like, just like you said, making it your personality for a couple weeks. But anyway, so that's the main brand new characters, I believe. We also get some one-offs like Sonia, who we mentioned that we really loved, who doesn't go on to appear again until Lower Decks, apparently. as a background character
for an episode.
Yep.
There's also Riker Beard, of course, is here.
Earlier when you said the best new character that we all need to talk about, I seriously thought you were going to say.
I knew you were thinking I was going to say that. Riker Beard is a horizontal move.
Whoa! I think watching the finale and seeing Encounter at Farpoint Riker again, I was like, yeah, he was good too. Yeah, we were wrong. He's good too.
Jonathan Frakes just sexy. I mean, what can you say?
What's real is that he has like the Riker lean now, like he leans on desks and chairs a lot. That's really great. He has like more confidence, and even like you look at season 1 Riker and you're like, oh, this guy's kind of scrawny, and like Frakes bulked up a little bit. It's not just the beard; it's the personality and the
he always had the lean, but he is a little more, bulky now.
Just a little bit, and just enough that you're like, oh yeah, and like he feels more confident. He's like effortlessly sexual and funny. I love Riker, and the beard is it's a thumbs up for me. But I agree, it's not the like. I know like the meme used to be that the show gets good as soon as Riker gets the beard, and it's like, well, first of all, the show was good from episode 2, and second of all, the beard is a horizontal move, like you said. That's the Alan and Magellan take. And then the very last like big new change is just people have shifted positions on the Enterprise. So we get, because we have no more oh gosh, I'm so sorry, what's her name, blonde woman who died,
Tasha Yar.
Tasha Yar. Because there's no more Tasha Yar, there's a whole insecurities like hierarchy. So Geordi and Worf are both in yellow because yellow is engineering and security. Deanna Troi gets a more normal outfit. I like this outfit for her. It's still a little horny, but everyone wears tight outfits on the show. So it's a level up.
It's just weird that she is the only person whose outfit exposes her cleavage. I don't really understand the Starfleet regulations there, but hey.
Marina Sirtis was treated like Garbo on this show, apparently. And it becomes more and more apparent, and we'll talk about Deanna in these. And then, those are the main big ones. And then Wesley has kind of upgraded in Starfleet's training program.
He's got a cool sweater shirt now.
Good. He's not just in the like gray thing. My friend, I'll talk about this when we get to the episode. But I watched an episode in the middle of the season with a friend who's never watched Star Trek before, and one of the first things he asked was, "What do the color of the shirts mean?" Because doesn't everybody who wears red die? And I was like, "No, it's," and I had to like Google what they all meant and like explain it. And he was like, "What about the gray shirt?" And I was like, "Oh no, that's just Wesley. He's not ranked yet." He doesn't have a rank, but that's our table setting. It's a new season. I want to also just say, like, literally from episode 1, The Child, I was like, they're making directorial choices now. They are like using the camera in different ways. It's not entirely static.
Yeah, definitely.
We have new sets. We have like engineering rooms. We have a shuttle set. We have a shuttle bay set. We have 10 Forward, obviously. Like, we have. The Enterprise has expanded in a really cool way, and also the way that they shoot it has expanded. Yeah,
there's a lot more. We're staying in. We have more rooms on the Enterprise, and we're staying in those rooms more often. Because the other thing that I noted from the like clip show at the end of the season is there was a lot more like TOS kind of we're hanging out in the plastic rocks looking soundstage stuff in season 1.
Yes.
And season 2 feels more like a single camera drama where we have our sets that we go to a lot. We're in the boardroom again, so let's shoot it in a brand new way to make it look like a new space. Yeah. Let's use the lighting in the bar in a cool way. One of my favorite shots, honestly, was there's the shot of Wesley where he's like sitting sad in the bar, and he just has a glass of seltzer water, and the bubbles are like aggressively rising to the top of the water, lit from underneath from the table. There's like lots of cool lighting stuff they do in the 10 Forward. So yeah, I agree. Visually much more striking and much more contemporary feeling than season 1.
I got really emotional when they did that first pan through the ship in 201. And I was like, oh my God, I'm back. Here's everybody. Everyone's got, like, people have new shirts. This is so good. I love the Enterprise. And it really shows that like you don't have to have too many new sets. You can do a lot with the sets that you have.
Yeah.
And they super do.
Yeah.
You want to talk about some like
one other character thing. O'Brien is just around all the time.
My king, Cole Meany.
It's great.
Is the best side character on this show. Holy crap, I love O'Brien. So we started saying hashtag O'Brien watch every time O'Brien was on screen in the Discord because I freaking love the dude so much. He gets to be funny. He gets to be Irish. He gets to just do things. It's so good. We get one more season of O'Brien, I believe. Maybe more? I forget how that works when he goes to DS9. But
DS9 happens way later, I think. So
But on this show, because didn't they weren't they coming out at the same time? Or is that also wrong?
Yeah, but I think it's like season 5 or something. It's like or 6. It's later.
When does O'Brien leave TNG?
Because DS9 happens a couple of years after the episodes in TNG that like set it up.
That makes sense. See, yeah, you're right though. Season 4 is when we don't get O'Brien anymore. So we have time with the boy. He's so funny. I love having a like on deck transporter guy. All he has to do is click the buttons, and yet he gets to be so funny and goofy, and I love him very much. Thank you for reminding me that he was here. I want more weird side characters like O'Brien. But let's talk about some overall theme stuff really briefly.
Sure.
It's not, like I said, this is a dramatic procedural show with some serialized elements, so it's not like they seeded too many thematic things. But I think the big one we have to talk about is Data. The show suddenly really, 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 really cares about Data.
Really interested in Data, yeah.
The first half of the season, it's like every episode is here's an OKA plot, and then the Data plot is amazing, and you're like, what? I love Data. The show finally gets that Data is sentient. He has humanity. What does it even mean to be human? We're tackling all of those things within episodes that, again, don't even have to center on him, but just getting Data plots sprinkled throughout. We learn so much about who he is, and he becomes such a fleshed out character. I love every bit with Data in this season.
Yeah, and it seems like they use him a lot to ask what is a core question of season 2 that I don't think was as core of a question of season 1, which is what you said of what does it mean to be human? What are kind of the core aspects of humanity? And sometimes they ask that through Data. He's learning to crack jokes. He's learning how to bluff in poker. He's like learning about having friendship and stuff. Sometimes they ask those questions through Wesley and ask about like what does it mean to like grow up and become an adult. They also do a lot more with Worf and explore the like kind of romantic sentimental side of being a Klingon. And you know, what does humanity look like from that perspective? So it's cool. They're asking different questions than season 1, which was really more about like, hey, you aliens, we got to tell you the rules right now because you're screwing up your society. And so we're shifting away from like, there were more kind of Wesley kid adventures in season 1. There were more away team stuff, and now it's more kind of characterful and human in a way that's cool.
And that in a big part comes from like changes on the writing team, right? Because as we talked about in season 1, in TrekChatz 1, Roddenberry didn't want characters to grow up and to change and to have conflict at all, because in Starfleet you don't have that. And like he's still involved. It's like he's a big reason that like a lot of the women are not treated well on the show, but also he's still the reason that like certain plots end in ways that you're like, that's weird. Why did they just make that so neat and clean? And it's because they were like, this is the mandate, is people can't change too much. But I think all of the characters get to come out of this season with growth and personality in ways that it feels like a different show sometimes. Like I went back and watched some of season 1 stuff and after this, and I was like, oh, they like didn't even have an idea of who Worf was, like you said, until A Matter of Honor, until like all these different storylines about Worf. And now I'm like, Worf is my best friend and I'll die for him in a moment's notice. So I think the focus on character is what made season 2 fantastic, but the Data stuff in particular, concluding with, of course, probably my favorite episode of the season, A Measure of a Man, or The Measure of a Man. It's the famous one. It's kind of an easy answer, but I am a sucker for a legal procedural, so we'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think in general the season's a bit hornier than the first one.
It's pretty horny, but also there was that horny montage in the last episode that reminded you of how horny season 1 was. So
yes,
it's a tough contest, I think.
Well, women get to be horny in this one also.
True.
People get
True.
God, what's the line in the last one where Pulaski is like, Choi, what are his emotions? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, they're just really strong. Yeah, Commander Riker's emotions are rather passionate, as in erotic. Very much so. Yeah, guys. Let's watch a whole montage every time Riker had a boner.
Much so.
Basically what they're doing. And then like Pulaski gets to be horny too. That's why I'm like, can we keep Pulaski just so like an older woman can be horny too? That's fine. Right. It's awesome. And then overall, like stuff that Star Trek is always about: disability, the concept of bodies, and like what do bodies need to do, and why do we use them? Ageism, how we treat the elderly, and also like sometimes clumsy metaphors for racism. It's all still here, and they handle it in different ways. And then my last big one was just, I think we got a little bit more of like understanding how the Enterprise fits into Starfleet's overall plan, and like the Enterprise as a military vessel. Like, I really enjoyed episodes that are about like, we have to do this exercise because, I don't know, Starfleet says so. And like, we have jobs that we want to do, but Starfleet's like pointing us in another direction, and we have to do things based on the Prime Directive. It's less about the Prime Directives than season 1, but it does always underlie every question and decision that Picard has to make. It's like, okay, they didn't forget about the Prime Directive, but it's not like the central thesis of the season as much. So I just really enjoyed all of that stuff overall. But
yeah,
those are the main like new things. Did you want to talk about the episodes?
Yeah, let's do it. So we can do our tier list rankings the way that we did in our first episode. So we are using standard tiers S, A, B, C, F, and then we had a tier that was bad but actually good or something like that. Do you want to still use that one?
Yeah, we can do the same one.
I think so. Okay, so you've got a thing open. You're sharing your screen. Great.
Already, my friend.
Can you add that tier? So add an F, and then you should be able to
add a row below. There you go.
Yeah.
And we're gonna call this tier F.
Yeah, I don't think we even need a D. I think it can just. Well, no, we'll keep D, I guess, just in case.
Gives us a little flexible. So SAB, CDF, traditional tier list of rules.
Yeah, and then bad but actually good is the last one.
Perfect. There we go.
Cool. Great. And we did some captain's logs. I did them sort of like in batches of episodes. So I'm going to play the first like minute or so of my first one just to kind of set the table of some things that I was thinking about when I watched this first chunk. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds great.
Great.
Captain's log, June 28th.
That's Melon.
9:26
purring in the
a.m.
background.
Ooh, early.
I've recently completed the first 8 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, and from what I understand, episode 9 is a big one, so wanted to log my thoughts here before I move forward. So far, season 2 has felt like the better episodes of season 1. It hasn't blown me away with quality. There's been some really strange moments, and mostly a lot of Star Trek The Next Generation kind of just doing what I expect it to do. I think the season premiere was a lowlight. Really strange depiction of pregnancy and of Deanna Troy's motivations and choices, which just the whole plot feels especially strange given recent events in our country that I'm sure Alan and I will dive into a little bit more. And then there are other episodes that just struck a strange chord or a bit of letdowns, like the Okana episode, for example.
I forgot about that one.
And then a handful of episodes that were kind of classic TNG in a way that was comforting but not particularly surprising.
I'll sort of fade me out here. I think those are we'll get to those. But there were definitely some episodes in this first chunk that were kind of like, okay, you're doing a classic TNG formula right now. Go off. Sounds
or
good.
like you're doing a TOS rejected plot, which is how I felt
Right.
about some of them for sure.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the child? You have a captain's log about the child also.
I do. Let's use that as a springboard.
Okay.
Actually.
I'll play that for us.
Captain's Log, Season 2, Episode 1, The Child. We're going to keep this one brief because I know that last time we did TrekChatz, my diaries went a little bit long, and so now we're going to be brief. I'm sure Magellan and Alan are already laughing about this. I'm here to talk about The Child, a really interesting episode with a bad A-plot. You guys can talk about Troy's baby. You guys can talk about the new outfits if you haven't already. You can talk about Crusher and Guinan. You can talk about the 10 forward, which is pretty sick. You can talk about all that stuff. And then also just, hey, I thought that the pregnancy stuff was pretty awkward. I'm going to do a joke because this is being played live. Alan, what number am I thinking of?
46.
That's right. 65.
Fuck!
Good job, Alan. High five.
Fuck!
Anyways, that's all I got. Peace out.
Were you supposed to get it right?
Yeah, I wrote it down in my notes. It's at the top of mine. It says Alan, the number is 65. Don't get it wrong. Damn it!
No way. Wow, that was such an own goal. I love it.
It's funnier that I got it wrong. I had a feeling that was going to happen, honestly.
It's definitely funny that you got it wrong. Okay, so we'll talk about the child briefly. Essentially, the A-plot here is that Deanna Troi is pregnant. We're not sure why. It's progressing extremely rapidly. She ends up giving birth to the child, who grows up extremely rapidly. And it turns out that this is like an alien creature who wanted to observe humans. And so the way that it chose to do that was by impregnating itself into Deanna Troi and being a human kid for a little while. And I don't know. It's weird. And it's an episode that kind of like uses some of the language of discussions about choosing to have a kid or not, or there's like talk of getting rid of the child, giving her an abortion. And it just feels like the episode like brings that stuff up and like brushes against a controversial and sensitive topic, and then has no interest in like saying something about it or telling a story that's careful about those things. I thought the only scene that really worked for me was when we're in the discussion room and all of these men are talking about like what to do with Deanna Troi's baby, and the sound kind of fades out and we're zooming in on her and on the picture of the fetus. And that's what we were talking about before, of like, that's a directorial choice that's putting ourselves in this character's position, telling a story. And then the episode really has no interest in that and ends up telling this bizarre story where she's like, no, my baby, I have to raise my baby. Why don't take my baby away from me? And it's like, okay, this is kind of dumb.
I really am struggling to get past the present situation that we're living in discussing the child. It feels like it's a specter hanging over this one. Yeah. And I watched it right before all of the Roe v. Wade stuff was happening.
Me too.
But like, it's still, I think about it and it's like, in a way, it is a pro-life episode, right? It's like, why don't you let me have this? It was born. And they're like, well, you can't possibly be a mother on the ship like this, especially of an alien that like you didn't consensually like let yourself do this. It happened to you. So it's all there. And like, you cannot tell me these writers, who we already know are a lot of like really, really awful white guys, a lot of them are, weren't in some way being like, this just makes sense, guys. Like, what do you mean? This is like a woman's right to choose to keep a baby. And it's like, well, guys, but there's like, in the 80s, you should have known better, you know? And it really left a sour taste in my mouth. And I was very disappointed for the season to start on such a stinker. It's also not a particularly interesting like plot. It's not handled that well. And I think it goes to show how much they do Deanna to kind of dirty this season. By like the episode that centers on her is about her being forcefully impregnated and wanting to keep the child, and that's all. And like the decision to have it leave is not up to her. Also, like it, this is like men deciding a woman's autonomy.
Yeah, and like you can definitely tell a story about a female character who's like, look, the circumstances of this pregnancy are horrible, and I'm making this choice. But throughout the episode, it just feels like she's possessed by the alien or something. Like it's not clear that she is making decisions totally from herself. Like the episode is not super straightforward about it. So like her agency in all of this is really muddled, and it's just a strange episode. Yeah. And Roe v. Wade initially was decided in 1973. So like
bing bong.
This is like the immediate past of this episode's writing. So yeah, clearly still a hot button issue at the time, especially in a post-Reagan America. But anyway, I would say it's like a D tier.
Yeah, it's a D. I would push for an F tier, honestly.
F tier is cool. Yeah.
It's just like what's good. Well, the stuff that's good is like, oh, Pulaski is racist, but at the time I hated it. So like I fully hated this episode while I was watching it, and we're a first time watch podcast, so I have to tell you how I felt when I watched it, knowing that like, oh, they were seeding that Pulaski was going to like learn to love Data is good. But, like, the way they handle her space racism in this episode sucks. It's so, like, 101. It is talking to me. Data, I'm pronouncing his name wrong. It's not a thing. Like, it's just super lazy writing. And it's like, they got better at it. They figured it out. Fair. But in this episode, I was like, I don't even care about the B plot. What are you guys doing with this?
Yeah. I think that Guinan is introduced really well, and the interactions that she has with Wesley are charming in this one. But it's not enough to salvage the episode. Yeah. I think an F is fair.
Next is Where Silence Has Lease, which I mostly know for the really gross face of the enemy in this episode.
Yeah.
Nagilum. I can't remember how to say the guy's name.
Yeah, this one is like one of those ones that I mentioned is like, okay, you're doing a TNG thing, you're in space, and there's some sort of space god who wants you to make a morally gray choice, and you're going to choose not to. Because basically he's like, hey, I want to see how all the ways you die, so kill all your people, half your people. And they're like, no, we're going to kill all the people instead. Fuck you, space guy. So
you know what brings us to a C for me?
What's that?
There's once they realize that it's very likely that the whole crew is going to die, even though, like, because we talk a lot on chats about the idea of fake tension and how, like, in a show like this, when they say a character is going to die, you know it's not going to happen, and so it feels false to say, like, we're all concerned about his health, because, like, it's a show that has more episodes. Like, I don't believe you. But like Picard lecturing people about the meaning of death while they play that like beautiful piano song, I think it's Gymnopedie #1, under him, I'm like, this is great. Like, they gave Patrick Stewart like he gave this some gravitas.
Yeah.
The line, what we are goes beyond Euclidean or other practical measuring systems. It's like very clever. And then finally, like, Troy and Data having to be like, no, wait, we don't like all just get to die. I'm glad we're having these conversations, but like, chill.
Yeah.
I think that gives it a C for me.
Yeah, I'm willing to give it a C. I think it is the definition of like a fine episode.
Yeah,
it's like a little boring, but it's not bad.
Agreed.
I think this is the one where they, like, Riker and Worf are on the version of the bridge where they keep walking through the doors and they're back on the bridge or whatever. Is it that one?
I don't think it's that one.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever episode that was a cool visual.
Yeah,
thing.
I think that might be the Icarus fact. No, it's the one after the Icarus fact. It's Pen Pals.
No. I think it might have been this one.
Okay. That part's good. But that keeps it in C territory. Another thing that's big in TNG Season 2 is the holodeck.
But
every holodeck episode is a banger.
But this is also like a very TNG season 1 thing of like, and now Data is gonna play Sherlock Holmes for an episode.
Yeah, but they did some cool. We're talking about Elementary Dear Data for folks. This is the episode with the Moriarty stuff, right?
Yeah.
I love it, dude. Speaking of discussions of humanity, when they go to Moriarty and they're like, we have to delete you, and he's like,
True.
but I
Really
know.
good.
But I know I'm alive. And they're like, yeah, but we can't acknowledge that because our version of the world doesn't work if everything in the holodeck is real. So I guess we can just hit Control S and save you and throw you away on the desktop or something. Like, just don't look at you. Wild. Amazing. And the way Moriarty like knows that like this is happening and he like messes up the holodeck simulation. I thought that stuff was fantastic.
Yeah, that stuff was pretty good. I think it takes me a minute to get over the way that TNG like loves the things that like fucking boomers love, I don't know. Like when it's like, oh, it's a Sherlock Holmes episode, or it's like, oh, now we're Dixon Hill, Private Eye, or like let's go listen to jazz, or stuff that like is just so specific to I'm an older guy in the 80s and this is what I grew up with, and these are like the kind of tentpole things of popular culture that sci-fi always draws on. And so what I like about it is what you were saying with the Moriarty stuff. I like that Geordi's like, let's go solve a mystery, and Data solves it too fast. Yep. I like that Dr. Pulaski is like, okay, let's get it to give you an original problem because you can only solve things that you've read about before. You can't actually solve a new problem, which is a cooler way to explore Pulaski being discriminatory towards androids and coming around on that stuff. All that stuff is great. And then I think just like the window dressing of like, it's a Sherlock Holmes story. I'm like, okay, that's kind of boring, but it's fine.
Yeah. It's just like Data goes to the holodeck to be her Sherlock Holmes. I'll watch it any day of the week, but I'm not going to like rate that highly. It's the Moriarty sentient stuff. It's the fact that the holodeck shuts off its own override. A thing in the holodeck turned off the ability to deactivate the holodeck. And you're like,
right.
What the fuck have we made? What did we do that this thing can just... And I think you wrote in your notes somewhere, like, why would you keep the holodeck at this point? It's, like, so dangerous to keep the holodeck.
Every time someone goes in there, it, like, endangers their life, basically.
Yeah, I told you that friend I watched an episode with, it was a later holodeck episode, and the first thing he asked was, like when the guy pulls a gun on Picard in that episode, he's like, oh, it's fine, right? He's, like, not going to die. And I was like, no, actually, the rule is he does die. It's kind of, like, bananas. And I don't know why, but that's how they programmed it. Because that's the only way it feels real.
Yeah.
Which I can watch so many holodeck episodes. I love these corny sets. I love that Moriarty's played by the butler from The Nanny. That was a fun bit of casting. And then, like, my last thing is that Troy can read the emotions of Moriarty and the holodeck, which really fully breaks open A, what a Betazoid can do, and 2, how sentient the holodeck is. That it like has readable emotions. They're not like she's like, oh, I feel like it's worried about dying or whatever, and it's like, oh shit, oh god, no, we are gonna just hit the delete button on that guy, aren't we?
Yeah.
But
the thing I liked about this episode is it did one of my favorite Picard things that he does multiple times in the season, which is when somebody fucks up like big time, he just bites his tongue and he's like, okay, yeah, let's fix that. Like when Geordi's like, shoot, I programmed a thing to be able to beat Data, and Data's so smart and now it's going to destroy the whole ship. Picard quietly goes, merde. And then he says, yeah, I understand, Lieutenant. Like, okay,
go off.
I'm not mad. We're going to fix it.
He's a really good picture of a leader, honestly. He listens to people really well.
Yeah.
He doesn't yell too much. When he does, it matters. Like, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
I would give this a high A, if not an S, honestly, for myself.
No. I'll give it a B. It is not an A.
Oh, God.
I don't think so.
This is an S in my heart.
So not an S tier episode. I'll compromise on A with you, but
Okay.
it is not that good.
Do you have an S tier episode in this season besides Measure of a Man?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, great. I'm excited. Fair enough. So that gets an A. The outrageous Okona. Hey, what would happen if literally Han Solo fell into Star Trek? Wouldn't that be weird? He would fuck everyone on the ship.
This starts like a multi-episode streak where a new male character thinks Deanna Troi is hot. It happens like 3 or 4 episodes in a row where someone's like, "Oh man, you're pretty attractive."
Uh-huh.
And I don't like it. I don't like this guy. This plot goes to stupid place. The Data trying to be funny plot is an S tier plot.
Yes,
that's an S tier plot.
Agreed.
The Okana stuff is dorky.
Garbage. This is the best, one of the better B plots of the season, and one of the worst A plots of the season. So it's really hard to rate.
Yeah.
I mean, does this land as a flat C because of that, or is it lower?
I think it's more entertaining than the Space Face guy one.
Yeah.
The second episode.
The humor stuff is so good. Yeah, you're right.
It could share the C tier, but maybe it's C tier and that Space Face guy one is a D tier episode.
I can push that. No, I think that's right. I don't feel a strong pull to have Where Silence Has Lease as C tier. Let's put that down to D.
Yeah.
And give Okana C.
There's something kind of interesting about Wesley meeting this Okana guy and being like, yeah, is that the kind of man I want to become?
Yeah.
Oh, he's kind of sad all the time. Hey, why are you sad all the time? And then that's the reason that he tries to fix things.
Mm-hmm.
But the resolution of it being like, actually, I never did anything wrong. I was actually a great guy helping these kids the whole time is a little silly. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it does what it's trying to do there. And I like the Wesley stuff, but overall, I'm like, it's kind of forgettable. I did learn that Okana, the actor who plays him, is the guy who was passed up to play Riker.
He did have the same height and beard and lean, so that makes sense.
I think there's a read of like, this is like Riker meeting another version of himself, kind of. And also Joe Piscopo plays the comedian in the holodeck that what's it called? That Data tries to emulate and learn from, and that's great casting.
Yes.
He does like
definitely.
a good Jerry Lewis impression. All that stuff is good, like you said.
Yeah.
And
Guinan in that plot is so good. And then the fact that the last line Data says is "Take my wharf, please."
Yeah.
That's funny.
That's a high five in the writers' room moment.
Yeah.
Loud as a whisper.
Yeah, loud as a whisper. This one was more interesting than I at first expected it to be. This is the one with Riva, the kind of negotiator guy who has 3 people with him who speak on his behalf. The reason they give is that he's deaf. And so they sort of have like a telepathic link with him, and they speak for different parts of his personality. And he's trying to broker a peace deal with this planet that has been seeing conflict for generations and generations. And I thought it was pretty good, actually.
Yeah, me too. I was really surprised. This is where I was like, oh, season 2 is like doing cool stuff. This is an away team mission that works and doesn't seem to be too high budget because it's just actors. It's a fascinating acting exercise and a really cool like discussion of how you communicate with other people and how conflict resolution works. Because this guy is like a expert negotiator. That's why they need him, right? I don't usually like the away team episodes where they're like, we found an expert blank and we need to rescue him. But I think what ascends this episode to B status for me is they actually got a deaf actor to play him. And like he consulted on the episode.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. He consulted on the episode and he actually changed the ending. Or he pushed them to change the ending.
Oh, that's so cool.
Right? Yeah. So the original ending, as I understood, was that it was like he was going to find another way to communicate, like to talk. And he was like, actually, what we're trying to say about the disabled community is like, they don't need to cater to us. We need to encompass them into society because they belong here and they're valuable as much as any other human being is. Let's
Yeah.
us learn sign language, because why not? And I thought that
Yeah.
was like really progressive for Star Trek at the time, honestly.
Yeah, I thought that was an incredible way to resolve, because I thought what it was going to be is he was going to get Data, Deanna, and Geordi to be his new chorus of people or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like the power of making new friends. But it was, a much cooler ending for him to be like, I'm going to spend months teaching these guys sign language, and the act of them slowing down and having to express through that manner of communication is going to lead to peace. Like, that's a fucking cool resolution to that plot. And he has conversations with Geordi about like Geordi's visor that I thought were interesting and like handled that well.
Pulaski literally asks Geordi, like, why don't you just fix it? This is a question that people have had eternally. It's like, why don't you? We have the technology. Why don't you do it? And what is the line? I think you wrote down the line that Geordi has here. Of like, why? Oh, there's a good Geordi line in this one.
I didn't write the line down. Sorry.
But he's basically like, why you don't like? Why do I have to fix it? Like, again, the world can like work with this, and it's not a bad thing. Like, I'm not getting rid of a bad thing. It's just like a aspect of my identity that I don't need to get rid of. That I found really powerful, and again, I think is bolstered by the actor, Howard Seago is the actor's name, who played Riva. This quote here: in the first draft, Riva learned to speak overnight after a mechanical translator used to communicate with his chorus failed. Seago suggested the ending used in the finished episode the day prior to shooting. So he like swerved in and it was like, guys, what you're saying here is not what you're trying to say. Let's pull back on that. And I think that elevates it a lot for me.
Me too.
Is that an A?
Yeah, that to me that brings it to A tier, knowing that context and just how that plays out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a surprisingly good episode.
Next up is The Schizoid Man. It's the name of the episode, guys. It's also the name of a Prisoner episode.
Yeah, I thought it was a Prisoner reference at first, but then the episode isn't really at all.
Mm-hmm. Old man wants a body again. He has a terminal disease. He wants to have sex with his young girlfriend.
This one's so horny. Oh my god.
He takes Data's body and tries to use it. There is something to be said about like ageism and bodies in here, but also it's like so weird and horny, and the guy is not well performed. It's William Morgan Shepard, and I think he's really he's trying his best. He's like a well-known character actor, but like I felt very uncomfortable with how horny it was. I thought the taking over Data was like more funny than it was serious. Yeah, and the episode doesn't do what it's trying to do fundamentally.
Yeah, I agree.
There is a line, speaking of like the show trying to do stuff, where someone says, "No being is so important that he can usurp the rights of another."
Picard says that.
Picard is the GOAT, dude. Are you kidding me? He brings such good stuff to bad episodes.
Yeah, and it's them again doing great stuff with Data, asking like, well, why can't this guy put his consciousness in Data? Isn't Data an android? And Picard's line is basically answering that question and previewing what we'll talk about when we get to Measure of Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let me make sure my order is right, because I think I've misordered the episodes here.
You've been going in the right order so far.
I have been so far? Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, so then that means that the next one is
a natural
matter
selection.
of honor? A natural selection. Oh, God.
And then,
wait, what are we rating Schizoid Man, by the way?
Like D.
Yeah.
I don't think it's good. I think there's like lines or moments, but it's not good.
Mm-hmm. So a natural selection, enhanced DNA development triggers an epidemic of rapid aging, which catches Dr. Pulaski in its grasp.
This was actually the inspiration for the new M. Night Shyamalan movie.
I didn't take notes on this one. That's partly why I was confused.
I barely took notes. This one is so boring.
Yeah.
This is so boring.
Pulaski's good, dude. That's what I've been realizing as I watch season 2.
Yeah.
I'm like, actually, Pulaski was good all along, but
yeah, it's just when you center a plot around like, I'm the dry doctor character doing a doctor thing, and I'm going to put a bunch of makeup on this actor's face to make it harder for her to emote.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, she's gonna solve the problem, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Dan Mulder's already old, so yeah, it's like old people on old people makeup, so it's just like not. This ain't it, Chief.
Yeah, it's just boring.
It's a D episode.
I think so. I don't really remember anything about it.
Okay. A Matter of Honor is up next. Another Worf episode, but also a Riker episode in a way, as Riker is assigned to go to a Klingon ship as an exercise, sort of an exchange program exercise, and then things go kind of bad on the ship.
In today's prestige drama version of TNG, this would be like a half-season arc where Riker is like on the Klingon ship, and I kind of want that a little bit.
The only reason I don't want that is
it.
I love Riker on the ship so much.
Yeah, of course.
But I agree. I would watch
like
it.
a modern show would drag it out so long that he's on this other ship for months, and this just resolves it in an episode. But I thought it was really cool.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the bluefish guy who comes onto the Enterprise is also kind of neat. He's just like a weird
The
nerd.
Benzite guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love a weird nerd. I think this one falls into B territory. I could have used a little bit more Worf, but the
definitely.
Riker stuff here is really good. He learns to accept cultural differences, and that's important.
Yeah.
Not every episode has to be a miracle top tier episode like Measure of a Man, the most famous episode of season 2 and one of the best reviewed episodes of all of Star Trek as a franchise.
Yeah, so we've got a couple more Captain's Logs to play here. I've got one about the next 8 episodes, and then you have one about this one.
Excellent.
So this is me about the middle chunk of season 2.
Captain's Log, stardate 6/29/2022. The time is 10:25.
This was this morning, by the way, that I recorded that.
Okay, so I just finished episode 16 of this season, entitled Q Who. And I had to get on here to talk about a Q episode, except not really. I just want to give my recap of these 8 episodes I've watched since episode 8. I'm going to say right now, Q Who, I know Q's in it. I know the Borg gets introduced. I fell asleep watching it twice.
We'll talk about that.
So I gave up on fully watching it. I'm going to have to get filled in on what happens. I've seen like 75% of it, but I fell asleep watching it twice. And note that I said like that it's 10:30 a.m. and not p.m. Anyway. What I've really liked about this sort of mid-stretch of TNG episodes is that there's this combination of really deeply investing in the humanity of the characters, especially Data, and sort of what does that mean? Seeing characters make choices that go against regulations or go against logic or go against the Prime Directive, and see them wrestle with that, but also see that they're doing that for important reasons. So I'm thinking of Measure of a Man. Amazing episode. I love that one and the court sequence, and Guinan's role in that episode is awesome, and she's fast becoming one of my favorite characters of the season. I similarly really enjoyed...
Fade me out there, because there's other episodes that get into like gray areas of what does it mean to do the right thing? But let's focus on Measure of a Man. So you have yours here. Can I play that?
Yes, please. Go for it.
All right.
Captain's Log, June 20th, 2022. Measure of a Man. Wow, dude. Nick, friend of the podcast, recommended that one of us or both of us record Captain's Logs for this episode. It's well regarded as one of the best, and I'm sure y'all are about to talk about it. But yeah, I just want to say Maddox is a nasty man. I love a good space racist. I love when he goes into Data's room and steals his Shakespeare book and reads Sonnet 29. And he's like, do you understand what this means? Pretty funny stuff. Also, he says, I'm sick to death of hearing about rights, which is a thing that a bigot says. And my last big note that I don't know if you'll remember to cover, but Guinan is a standout here. Talking about how when we create more than one type of disadvantaged individual and we create a lot of them, bingo bango, we found ourselves in a slavery situation. And then Picard has to just say it to her, and it becomes less subtle, but that's all right. And yeah, it's a classic for a reason. Star Wars got real quiet after this episode. They just don't do things like this. And they talk about droids like they're people, but they're not. They don't get rights. And meanwhile, the Measure of a Man is like, yeah, but they probably should. They probably should. Oh, and last thing is Data has the Tashiar memory hexagon in his quarters, which I thought was very cute. Anyways, that's what I got. Yes! I agree with that person. Everything they said is right.
Just to talk about that Guinan moment for a second, because I think that scene is a perfect example of Whoopi Goldberg elevating the material, because she's having this conversation with Picard, and she's like, it's a pretty fucked up situation when you make all these androids, and then what are you going to do with them? And then he's like, oh yeah, okay, so it's like slavery. And she gives this look of like, are you a white man like explaining slavery to me right now?
Yes.
There's this like eye twitch, lip twitch thing of like, you fucker. And then she's like, well, let's not go there. And he's like, no. Yeah, it's definitely like slavery. That's exactly what it is. And then he runs off and does his thing, which, yeah, I think is a really subtle but great moment from Whoopi Goldberg of just her being like, guys, come on now. Be careful.
The subtext is text. Watch what you're saying. Come on. Yeah, it's excellent. I think this is the show finally understanding that's like the blending of subtext and text is where the richest like narrative meat is in Star Trek. I've learned since our discussion of season 1 that the data autism metaphor stuff was intended by at least some of the writers. That was part of what they were going for, which is disappointing, but like they were trying, and I don't want to give them too much credit because I don't think it's handled very well, but like they tried. And like Data and you can also read this if you want to be cynical as like, okay, Data as a like disadvantaged person or a disabled person or whatever the fuck, or like the person deserving rights is like fraught, but also that's like, if you say that, then every android story is fraught. And like that's the point, is you're supposed to stare in the face the people that we don't think are people and go, well, why is this one yes, but the other one is questionable? Why is this a question mark? Right. I think I'm also going to link the Legal Eagle discussion of this episode because
I gotta watch that.
It's very, very, it's probably my favorite episode of his. Because he goes into a lot of like what the lady who's like a friend of Picard who gets introduced is talking about, what Maddox is arguing, the way that they argue things, and the fact that like Riker has to play the villain in this in a way because he like by law has to be against
to be the prosecutor. Yeah.
Exactly. And he does it really well, begrudgingly, but he's very good at it. And, I just think it's stellar. I could listen to old guys talk about humanity and sentience in a empty room all day. This is a flawless episode to me. I get the hype. I love Data, and Data deserves rights.
Yeah, and it's such a great way to build, because we know that Data's not going to get shut off and taken apart, because it's Data. He's the main character of the show. So how do you build tension around that? And I think the maneuvering of having Riker be the opposing counsel, Riker, that he's going to do the very best job he can because Data's life is at stake. If he doesn't, then the judge is just going to summarily decide like, okay, take him out of here, go take him apart. And so there is that genuine moment of terror when Riker does too good of a job at demonstrating that Data is a machine, and Picard is like, I don't know what to say. I got to go think about this. And then it's actually a well-written response that addresses the substance of Riker's argument. And I love that moment when Picard says, prove that I'm sentient.
Yeah. Best part. Okay, what sentience exactly? Hold on, define it. And he's like, well, are you conscious? Yeah, I'm alive. Are you self-aware? I'm pretty sure I exist. It's like, I forgot the third one is. He's like, weird, I'm sentient. Okay, easy. Data? Like Data just like calmly, coolly answers yes all of them. The guy's like, this is hard. He literally says like, this is difficult at one point.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it so damn
I also love that one of the like core pieces of evidence on Picard's behalf is that Data feels sentimental about the fact that he had sex with Tasha Yar.
Bananas.
Who knew that was going to matter so much?
Season 1, episode 2. Well, because if she's gonna matter to the people, and that's one of her only like major plot moments, then they're like, well, it has to matter.
Mm-hmm.
I think the moment for me, I wrote in my notes, this is the part that made my heart catch in my throat, was in the conversation with Guinan. She talks about how making a million data means you get a whole generation of, quote, disposable people. And she says, that is a truth that we have obscured behind a comfortable, easy, or I think Picard says that, behind a comfortable, easy euphemism. And it's like, shut it down. Like, that's why I said, like, Star Wars is really quiet, is because, like, I don't want to watch shows and stories about like droids and not address them as people now, because like, what are you doing? And what are you saying about like people who look different or are made or are synthetic? And what do we define as synthetic? This feels like a thesis statement on all synthetic life form stories that like draws a line in the sand and basically says like, you can't, everything else is us BSing ourselves. This is the only way we can be honest, is if we accept that they're real and they deserve rights.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really applaud the writers of this episode. I know one of the main writers actually had like worked in courts, Melinda Snodgrass. And so like there's a lot of actually like good legal discussion happening here in addition to just good
Very
plot.
Cool.
Yeah. This episode made me cry. I freaking loved it, dude. It's an S tier for me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's an S tier episode, definitely. Excellent.
You know, like I said, I'm not always here to say that the things that the fandom says are wrong. Sometimes they're right. Oh, God, Measure Man rules so much. I'm going to rewatch it like once a year, dude. Let's talk about the Dauphin, the dolphin.
Uh-huh.
Imagine Amik from Twin Peaks is in this one. That's kind of cool. Shelley.
As who?
She's the Dauphin's like assistant.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the girl that's like crushing on Wesley, she has like a friend who's like, "Oh, you really should like be careful who you go out with." That's
the shape-shifting lady?
Yes, not the old lady. There's like she has a young friend.
Oh, wait, I gotta look this up.
I got you. Bam.
I totally missed her.
Yeah, there she is in the Dauphin. It's
Okay,
wild.
That's fun.
Yeah.
We also didn't talk about wasn't Donna. What's her name?
Laura Flynn Boyle.
Wasn't she in an episode?
Was she? I was not aware.
No, or some Twin Peaks person Okana like seduced.
Oh no, that's
Who was that?
Terry Hatcher.
Terry
Hatcher. Desperate Housewives. You're thinking of Terry Hatcher.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Yep. I am thinking of Terry Hatcher. Okay.
But the Dauphin.
Anyway, this is a very cute episode. I liked it. I really like Wesley taking her on a date to the holodeck when they're on the asteroid, and the touch of like the sounds become more resonant as the scene goes on was such a cool random space thing. And Wesley going around asking everybody for dating advice. And like Worf is talking about how Klingon women throw things and claw at you, and the men read love poetry. And then Riker and Guinan try to teach him how to flirt, and they get way too caught up in it.
Shut up, kid. Guinan says to him, I don't think this is how I want to flirt. She's like, shut up, kid. Riker's giving me sexy eyes.
And then there's, some like fucking creature from Black Lagoon, like B-movie Godzilla looking ass stuff going on, which is stupid.
I laughed.
Wesley does a racism for a minute there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a goofy episode, but I liked it. I enjoyed watching it.
It's got good parts to it, but I overall wasn't a fan. What are we talking, B or C?
For me, it's a B. I mean, I could see it going either way.
I think the flirting stuff elevates it just to barely making a B. It's clawing for dear life, but it makes it there.
Yeah.
The flirting stuff is very good. It's really good.
So good. I was so happy to see it again in the clip show episode.
Yeah, me too. That's the thing
Yeah.
about TNG, though, is whenever the episodes are bad, they feature a really good part. So it's hard to rate things very low because you're like, well, but
Yeah.
there was this one good thing. Contagion is next. Remember the Yamato from season 1? No, we don't. It wasn't that memorable of an episode.
What was it?
It's a sister ship that like got destroyed for some reason. This
Okay.
turns into isn't this the like he does some this is not the time travel one.
This is the one where they go to the weird, it's like the Romulans are there and there's that weird planet with the super advanced alien species technology and the teleporter door, and then they help the Romulans. There's like this world building that's happening that I wasn't clear on if this was connected to some TOS stuff that I wasn't familiar with or something, but
Yeah.
I didn't really have like a good foothold on this episode. Mostly I just really like the parts where Picard turns to the crew and says the word comments and then everybody says stuff to him. That's pretty good. Or the scene where he's watching the montage of the guy's personal logs from the Yamato. It was like a pretty well written, cool, mysterious sequence.
Yeah, I think Steve TNG can do a space mystery pretty well.
Yeah. I just, the like world building stuff, I was having a hard time following it. I felt like I was missing some context or something.
Yeah, I agree. The Romulans have really big coats. That's my one big note. It was like really wide coats. And then how do they like fix the virus? Oh no, because the virus is like the ship, like none of the technology works. And so you do get a funny part here where it's like, how do the people on the Enterprise deal with not having their technology? We don't have the replicator is broken. He asks for like tea and it gives him the leaves of a tea tree. And then Pulaski is like, you know how we fix things is with my cheese sandwiches or no, chicken soup, PCS, Pulaski's chicken soup.
She tells someone to do like a shin splint and they're like, this is barbaric.
What is that? Yeah. Like we used to do that. I think it's a C or a D, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think it was bad. I just was having a hard time following it, so I'd call it a C.
Okay. The Royale, not with cheese. Not a holodeck episode, but an away team episode, but not a TOS or on the thing. It's like really weird.
It's a holodeck episode by any other name, right?
Yeah, they go to a planet that creates an image of like a 1940s dime store detective novel.
Yeah. And they're stuck in this casino. Yeah.
It's fun. I don't know. First of all, I love every time they play poker. I love every time that Data gets to be in a poker game. That's so good to me in blackjack and all that stuff. I love Data gambling and like manipulating the thing because it's already like weighted. He unweights
him
the die.
Squeezing the weighted dice back into shape is funny.
He has a cowboy hat for a lot of this episode. These are like good things to me. These are boxes checked off.
Yeah, Data says baby needs a new pair of shoes, and then he does like a snap. It's pretty good.
King. Riker distributes the extra poker chips to the rest of the people.
Well, also Picard told him in the book, it says that they were really generous.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's that's kind of an interesting way to resolve, like, oh, if you want to get out of the book, you need to become the characters who get out of the book. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's creative.
A never-ending story sort of thing.
This is like,
going for here.
I don't really like to use the term filler episode, but like, that's what this is. It's just like, yeah, we went to the Royale and had a little adventure.
It's also a fun, like, the different away team configurations of the season are all good. And in this one, it's Worf, Data.
Worf, Riker, and Data is a fun
Riker.
squad.
Yeah, that's just a really good squad. So I had a lot of fun with this one. I agree. It's like filler in the sense that like I didn't learn anything from it, but I think it's kind of interesting. And it just doesn't have any interest in explaining stuff. That's why I keep going back to like, this is not a show that you need to watch in order, really? Because like sometimes you just watch Dora and you're like, that was weird. We went to a casino planet, kind of. Or like a virtual
Did they
casino.
explain why that was there? Or
Not, I think they like briefly touch on it, but my point is like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's just like there is it's an excuse for them to be on this cool planet.
Yeah.
It sounds like we want to give this a C.
Yeah, I could lean B just because it's like that fun, but I think it's C is.
What would you
right.
personally give it?
I would give it a C personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would too. I don't, even though I like stuff about it a lot. So next up is Times Squared.
Mm-hmm.
Most importantly, starts with Riker making some eggs. I love how quiet and domestic this first shot is of like, all right, I found these eggs. These are really good. I do really good scrambled eggs. And they're like, oh, these aren't bad. Riker, what are these from? He's like,
some random place. They're like not even really eggs. Somebody said omelets. Like you're gonna make such great omelets, and then it's a close up of him like scrambling them. I was like, wait, hold on.
That's not an omelet.
What the heck? Worf loved it, of course, because Klingons like bad food, I guess.
And then what this turns into is when they're called to the bridge, they see a what is it? They like see a capsule that has Picard in it.
Yeah, they pick up a shuttle that is an Enterprise shuttle, and then they open it up and Picard's in it. The plot is they get stuck in like a wormhole type thing, and then in the logs on the shuttle, they see footage of 6 hours from now, Picard escaping the Enterprise, and then the Enterprise getting blown up. And there's some awesome boardroom discussion scenes in this episode. It's so good. A lot of Picard trying to be a steady leader, but being really anxious and nervous and mad at the thought of himself abandoning the Enterprise. Like a surprisingly interesting character study of Picard, I think. That ultimately, for me, buckles under the weight of the sci-fi concept not really making sense. Because basically it's just like he wants to break out of this time loop that would doom him to being in the position that this other Picard is in, and he like murders the other Picard too for some reason.
Well, he realizes that he has to. But I think like other shows, they have to get rid of him. Other shows handled this concept of like, we saw our future. Literally, Babylon 5 is like centered on this concept. Has a central plot in it.
Yeah, Babylon Squared. Babylon Squared is way better than Times Squared.
Boof. True though. Yeah, it's not. It's an idea that's cool. That's not handled particularly well.
B. I think like the Picard character study stuff is actually pretty good.
Fair enough. Agreed. Yeah. The Icarus Factor.
Icky.
You don't like this one?
I just wanted to say icky.
Oh, icky Icarus.
We got Riker Daddy.
Riker Dad. Everyone has to have daddy issues on these shows at some point. Oh, this is the one with PCS, Picard, Pulaski's Chicken Soup. Sorry, lore experts.
This is the one with horny Pulaski also.
Yup, because she has a consummate friendship with Riker's dad at some point.
This is also the one where they just rip off the thing from The Prisoner, the fighting thing, and then they're like, let's just like add some kind of racist Japanese stuff to it and make it our own thing.
I can't look up that thing you're thinking of, but I know what you're talking about. It's great. The fighting that they do. Kasho!
Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff. Kasho and that part in The Prisoner, in Hammer into Anvil, the Prisoner episode is excellent. In this one, I don't know. I do like it when people have parents on these shows and we get to meet the parents. I want to meet Worf's parents. I know we do later. They've talked about his parents before. But Riker's dad just is another toxic male who's like, I cheated to beat you at this game as you were a kid so that you would keep fighting me and never be able to beat me. Which they handle that exact concept better in Peak Performance with Data. But like, I wanted more out of Riker's dad.
Yeah, I think it's just not that interesting of a plot now to have like a father and son be like, we just can't talk to each other. And then they punch each other and they're like, it's so hard for us to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love you, son. And it's like, motherfucker, like this is toxic masculinity. This is a problem. I don't want to just give a thumbs up like, yay, we beat each other up and now we can say that we're sad that my mom's dead.
Yeah.
You know?
They don't really want to handle it.
Yeah. So it was fine.
Oh, is that? I think that's a D for me.
Yeah. What do you think of the Worf, Wesley, like throwing Worf a party, it seems, but then it turns out that it's like this Klingon ritual
Training
again.
exercise.
Kind of fun.
Not fun enough. There wasn't enough of it. It's just like Worf is really sad for some reason. What's going on? Is it his birthday? No, he actually is due for this like Klingon ceremony where he like takes a lot of brutal hits from these like death sticks that he doesn't want to buy, and then he survives it because he's really cool. And then they do it in the holodeck, and he goes, "Thanks, guys. I have really good friends." Like, I just recapped that whole plot. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do like people being nice to Worf. Always, always, always.
Yeah.
So that's a D. This is the point of the season where I was like, wait, what happened? Season 2? Come on, like get back. Because then you get pen pals, and I'm like, no. What's going on? I'm so bored. Oh no.
You didn't like pen pals?
Not particularly. I thought I liked the kid getting introduced. I like Data having a
But you
pen
love
pal.
like Prime Directive stuff.
True. That stuff's good. This one might be worth a rewatch for me, honestly. Can you give the overall rundown on pen pals?
Yeah. So basically, I think this is, to me, this is at least an A tier, if not an S tier. This would be like, this is like my dark horse S tier candidate.
Okay.
Essentially, pen pals, there's 2 plots. One is about Wesley, who's being given this seemingly not that important command over this like geological study that they're doing on these planets. And it's like, okay, Wesley, go make your team, put your team together. And Wesley's feeling self-conscious about how he's got all these like cool older scientists who like don't really respect him. And the first guy he goes and talks to is like, hey, kid, at any point I can take over for you. We wouldn't want you to mess up on your first command.
Yep.
He has like a team meeting with them that doesn't go super great, and they all doubt his choices. And so he's talking to Riker about like, how do you make a decision and get people to follow it? And he's like, you got to do what Picard does, where he listens to people. And then he says like, okay, anyway, this is my decision and you're going to have to live with it. So I think that stuff's great. And Wesley's team ends up like saving the day and fixing this planet that's having tectonic issues as a result of their research and his choices. The Data plot is that Data has been getting these like kind of strange transmissions. And then he goes and admits to Picard that he's been corresponding with this young alien girl who he tells Picard. Picard's like, okay, well, her species does know there is interstellar life, right? Data says, no, sir. Picard says, oops. Literally, that's what he says.
Yeah.
So Data's been violating the Prime Directive by speaking to this entity from a planet that doesn't even know that space travel exists.
Right.
And this planet is suffering from earthquakes, and she's in danger, asking for help. And so there's this big discussion about what do we do? How do we navigate the Prime Directive? And Pulaski's like, we go and we help, like, fuck the Prime Directive. And Worf is like, I don't know, you can't just like kind of break the Prime Directive. It's an absolutist thing.
Yeah.
And so they get into this, philosophical debate about like, well, where's the line? When is it okay to help, and what sort of help should we give? And Data is like really sentimental and wants to help somebody and is like becoming more human, I guess you could say. But yeah, lots of good stuff.
That.
And my favorite O'Brien scene is in this episode, where Riker goes into the transporter room to beam Data down to the planet, even though he's not supposed to, and it breaks the Prime Directive. And he's like, O'Brien, you didn't see any of this. Go take a nap. And O'Brien's like, okay, sir, I'll be napping in the corner. And then Data leaves, and then O'Brien's like, sir, I just woke up.
It's the whole mood, O'Brien.
Yeah, I think it's a really great episode.
You've sold me enough to give it a higher ranking than I gave it. I did write that I liked the Wesley learning to be a leader stuff and how that was handled very maturely. And again, like giving Wesley a plot that, as an adult, you're like, why don't you know how to be a leader? And it's like, yeah, because you learned how to do it. And Wesley never learned it. So like, let's get him to the point where he can be assertive and all that stuff. I also just enjoyed the episode opening with Picard on the holodeck, acknowledging his identity as a horse girl. 'Cause he's like, I would love an Arabian equestrian experience. He like summons a horse. That's fun.
Yeah, and there's that cool interaction with Deanna Troi where he says like, I think he said like there are some people who believed that that Allah created horses by gathering up the western winds or something, and then Deanna Troy's like, that's kind of what the holodeck does, and Picard's like, damn, you're so right. You just blew my mind. Holy shit. Pretty good.
I'm gonna give that an A tier for you.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That brings us to Q Who? The one and only Q episode of this season, excuse me. Q wants to join the Enterprise. Picard's like, that seems really weird. Your race didn't like you. Maybe there's a reason they don't like you. You seem like a dick after the literal 2 times you've been a dick to us. And he's like, no, but I'm not just a dick. I need, I can do cool things. I should test you guys. He teleports the Enterprise to a very far away part of subspace where they encounter the Borg, who reside in a big cube that assaults the Enterprise. And they're like, oh, God, we're not ready for this. They send an away team on the ship. They're like, oh, my God, they're breeding Borg babies. A Borg comes onto the Enterprise, and they try to shoot it and fail. Q is like, you guys aren't ready for this. Too bad. You need to ask me for help, though, if you want to get out, because they're going to blow you up. And then they are like, oh, I don't know. And then he's like, Picard, get over your ego for 5 minutes and say that you need me. And he's like, you want me to say it? Well, I need you. And then he teleports them away. And then Guinan and Picard are like, we're not ready for the Borg right now. There are things out there that we are just not prepared for. A replicating, modifying race that can block everything we have. Maybe someday we'll even be able to communicate with them. But for now, put a pin in that. My thing with the Q episodes is in theory, Q should be really interesting. He's like a reality warper. He's really powerful. This is where we also learned that Guinan may also be some sort of reality defying being, because she's really old and she knows him, and she's like, don't trust that motherfucker. Yeah. But every actual Q episode just turns into a little scamp went and did a nasty thing to the Enterprise, and then they fixed it, and then he made them say sorry, and then he disappears, and it's that's not what I want Q to ever be.
Right.
So I'm 0-3 for Q episodes, but I understand that this is again one of the 2 or 3, if you're gonna call them lower important episodes. Here's the Borg, here's the guy and stuff. Picard's good in this. Move on. It's fine.
Yeah. Like I said in my captain's log, I fell asleep twice watching it. So that's my review.
Sonya's in this episode. Our favorite.
Yeah, Sonya's introduced in this one.
Does she make the red mist in this one? No, that's later. That's in the cleanup.
She spills the coffee on Picard in this one.
Yes.
Pretty good.
C?
Yeah, sure.
C is now caught up to D. Samaritan Snare, an episode that makes me giggle only because the aliens in this episode look really stupid.
And they act really stupid too.
Yeah, their defining characteristic is stupidity.
Yeah. I have one last captain's log about the last 6 episodes before we dive into them.
Groovy.
Here it is.
Captain's log, stardate 6/29/2022, 7:11
Sounds like a
PM.
spaceship.
I've just concluded Season 2 of Star Trek The Next Generation a couple hours ago, and I wanted to share my thoughts on this back third of the season. So the first thing I want to remark on is the fact that Season 2 has been surprisingly consistent, and I think Shades of Grey, it being such a weak point of the season, being this strange clip show episode that includes so many clips from Season 1, I think is a kind of punctuation mark on the quality of Season 2. Even if it itself is not a great episode, it really drives home the fact that there was a lot of dumb stuff in Season 1. And what this episode is doing really well is placing a great emphasis on these kind of character level struggles and emotional journeys with Deanna Troi worrying about Riker, the way that Riker's trying to look strong in the midst of this, Dr. Pulaski feeling a sense of accomplishment at it, the sense of humor that the episode has at the end with Picard and Data and Riker saying that he's Captain Picard. As much as it's a lame episode, I think the best parts of it are the things that were best about the season overall. And the worst parts of it are the clips from season 1 where you're like, oh yeah, there's that guy with the glowing hand who touched Riker for a while. That was kind of silly. I will say these last 6 episodes didn't really have any huge standouts. Just kind of like character interactions that I thought were strong. I really liked Wesley and Picard sharing their shuttle in Samaritan Snare as Picard is going to get his heart worked on. I think that stuff's really great. And again, an example of this kind of character level conflict and discussion, as opposed to, or in contrast to, the other side of the plot, which is like, we're dumb guys who need technology. Not so good. And that stuff ends up being the weakest stuff.
I'll fade myself out there. So yeah, that was my general feeling about this one. Is I don't know which one you would call the A plot, but the Picard needing his heart fixed plot is awesome.
Yes.
And the dumb guys kidnapping Geordi is not fun or good.
I like the way that they trick them. Where
yeah,
they
that is good. Yeah.
The thing that makes the bad A plots work for me in this season is usually the solutions. And like the trouble there is usually by the solution, if you don't already like the A plot, you're probably not paying attention. So you're like, oh, what? They solved it? All right, whatever. But like they solve it by first of all, Geordi disables the guy's like weaponry. He like gives them weaponry and then takes it away. And then second of all, they make it seem like the Enterprise is way stronger. And they're like, okay, well, we got to just get off. You guys are not ready. You're not strong enough for them. And then they leave. But yeah, the Picard Wesley stuff is what you come here for. Picard actually has a heart condition. That's really interesting. That's like some development for our dude. And he has a synthetic heart, and he's really bitter about the fact that this synthetic heart is faulty, which I would be too, right? The whole point of getting a synthetic body part, like this is not a one-to-one metaphor, I'm aware, but a little over a year ago, I got LASIK surgery and like got 20/20 vision, and there was a moment like recently where my eyesight like I wasn't able to see something really far away. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I literally did the thing that fixes your eyes permanent, like almost semi-permanently, and this isn't working. But like when it's your heart, when it's literally the thing that keeps you alive, and it's like 23 whatever, and it still is faulty, you're like, how far does society have to advance now? If we can fix Geordi's eyes, and we can make a synthetic heart, but we can't make a working synthetic heart. That sucks. And I understand Picard's like anxiety there.
Yeah, and it's also interesting for it to be this emblem of his time as a rash younger man, and this being a lifelong consequence of that. The story that he ends up telling Wesley, I think, is really well told and moving. And it speaks to like, how did Picard become the sort of chilled out, kind of like intentional, diligent guy that he is? And why does it bother him and embarrass him so much to have this heart condition? It's like, partly it's a physical weakness. You don't want the captain to be weak. And also partly it's this like permanent reminder of a weakness of character of his that this is a consequence of, which I think is a really moving character moment for us to see. And I just wanted to say, I like the moment at the end where he comes back on the bridge and everybody tries to clap for him and he's like, shut up.
Stop. I sat in surgery for 3 hours. It's fine. I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I think this is a B tier episode.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
The truth is that season 2's like highs are much, much higher than season 1's, and its lows are about the same. So it trends higher for me, even though our ranking is very evenly spread right now.
I think its lows are higher and its highs are lower.
Its highs are lower than the highs of season 1.
I don't remember what the highs of season 1 are, to be fair. But I really think that there's only one S tier episode in the whole season, and that's Measure of a Man.
And it's The Child. Oh.
But like season 1 had way more this is terrible, or we haven't even touched bad but actually good. Like there's no ironically good episodes of season 2, really.
I would argue The Emissary, maybe.
Okay, maybe. Yeah, we can talk about that.
That's the only one I would argue that for.
The one with Worf's girlfriend?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Let's get there.
Yeah.
The Long Ladder. Oh, speaking of bad, but actually, no, the Long Ladder is bad, but actually good. I figured it out. This is the weirdest.
Yeah.
I saw somebody argue
right.
that. That's it. That's easy.
Yeah.
I saw somebody argue that this one is racist towards Irish people, which is hilarious to me.
I wrote in my notes that the way that the guy drinks the whiskey and reacts to it feels like a hate crime. Like,
right.
He's like, oh boy, that's good alcohol. Wow. It's like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Especially
guys?
the constant reminders, and again, this is going to come up when we talk about the emissary, that, like, you know how we don't like sometimes what the writers' metaphors are for their own show, like the Data stuff?
Mhm.
The writers also really definitely do want the Klingons to be African-American people. Like, that's the specific metaphor that they're often going for. When it's broad, it works. When it's like, you learn how to talk like we do, or drink our alcohol, it's like, what the, huh? So many questions. It feels very weird. But I think the performances here are really funny. I love a strong woman. And I think Riker is too horny for his own good and needs to, like, have a spray bottle nearby in case he gets out again.
Yeah, I like the way that he propositions her is just by staring at her for a really long time.
When you're hot, that's how it works.
Oh, okay. All right. I see what's going on.
You want to wash
here.
my feet.
Got it.
Okay,
Why are they Irish, like 1800s Irish people?
They really Data briefly explains it. So they are from a group of people who, like, in the, whatever, 22nd
century, 23rd century or something, yeah.
People were, like, so sick of where the Earth was going that they came up with a faith called neo-transcendentalism, which is a return to the old style of things. So that's why they're like this. It's a really dumb, like, if you wanted to explore that, I want an episode about that. I don't want this, like, and that's why they speak like old times and they have, like, old outfits and stuff. That's goofy.
That also doesn't explain why they're Irish.
Like, specifically Irish, yeah. It's just like, it's because it's funny.
Yeah, it's.
I like enjoyed the experience of watching this episode, but then when I looked back, I was like, there was nothing there for me. There was like nothing to grab onto.
The clone stuff is kind of interesting. There's this society of.
Oh yeah.
Basically, there were 5 people who started a colony, and they kept their society alive by cloning themselves for hundreds of years.
But there's so
now
much.
we need more DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a pretty funny moment where Riker has just had sex with the Irish lady, and then he's in this discussion with these clone people, and they're like, well, how did you avoid, like, sex? Did you make it illegal or something? And he's like, yeah, at first, and then now we just think of sex as so repugnant, and then it cuts to Riker.
Yeah, powerful.
It's kind of a funny edit.
Really powerful.
But the resolution of this plot is so weird.
It's slapdash. It's just like, all right, we got 2 different groups of people who are really different, kind of coming from different worlds. One of them needs babies. The other one loves to fuck. All right, smush them together. Which, guys, I said this in season 1. Isn't that also breaking the Prime Directive? Kind of. I guess it's not like they're not underdeveloped. They're developed and they chose to come onto the ship. So no is the real answer.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, you literally defined, like, Pulaski weirded me the hell out in this at the end when she's like, yeah, and then after several generations, you guys are gonna, like, start looking different. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, you don't get to pick a whole society's, like, genetic makeup. That's weird, dude.
And there's this really strange moment where, I don't remember her name, but the woman who Riker has sex with, who has sex with Riker, who is from the, like, Irish people group, she goes up to Picard.
Brenna Odell.
Brenna goes up to Picard and she says, dude, you can't just go to some back room with all these other men and decide on how society works and then expect women to bear the, like, practical responsibility of realizing that vision. Like, it's easy enough for you all to say, yeah, every woman's going to have 3 children by 3 different men, but then we have to do that. And then she's like, but so what is he? He's like a prime minister or something? Is he pretty rich?
He's kind
It's like,
he's
guys,
like rich, right? Okay.
What are you doing? You had like a really valid anti-patriarchal point, and then you flushed it down the toilet.
Like, and it's almost an interesting response to the child. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's like, oh, maybe people should have a choice of like what, like society shouldn't determine how you have kids or if you have kids. You can just do whatever you want. Huh? Nah, never mind. Like, hold on. You guys need
Episode's over? Okay, got it.
Exactly. It's disappointing in that way. But I think it's bad but actually good just because the performances, especially if her dad is really funny. But it's for sure a bad episode.
When it's not like offensive.
Yeah, it is. It is offensive. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Manhunt.
This one's fun.
This is the one I watched with my friend. I'm so glad he got to watch the Oksana Troy episode.
What an episode.
I know.
What
This
an
is your
episode.
first episode of Star Trek ever.
Oh, man. I mean, it does have everything you need. It's got these aliens who are like cryo-frozen for some reason, Oksana Troy, and the giant hanging out with her. You've got some holodeck stuff. It's like this really concentrated batch of TNG weirdness that's pretty fun to watch.
You want to know some fun stuff about this episode?
I do.
First of all, yeah, it's a smorgasbord of like things I like. There's some holodeck. There's some very funny holodeck stuff with Dixon Hill, and then like the guy falling. Yeah, that stuff's all excellent. We again reference Pacifica, which has become like a white whale for Star Trek, where it's like they're gonna keep saying like, all right, right after this, we're going to Pacifica, guys. We have like an ambassadorial mission on there, and then they cannot go. They must not go.
Is that like the capital or something?
No, it's like a beach planet. It's like the planet to hang out
okay.
and have fun on. And so that's why I love it, because it's like we never get to go. I always want to go to Pacifica, but you can't go. Someday I think Star Trek will actually show it, but that's become the gag. No, my trivia was, you know how there are those two like fish aliens who hilariously turn out to be like evil assassins with bombs on their chest?
Yeah.
Fucking hilarious. My friend loved that.
So
one
funny.
of them is played. You will never. Did you see my notes?
No.
You'll never guess who played one of the fish aliens. Musician. 80s, 70s, 80s musician, part of a band.
Oh, I did see this, and I can't remember who it was.
It's Mick Fleetwood.
Right.
He's in Star Trek. He just is, and he's in a costume. Like, he's not even...
That's awesome. That's so good.
Isn't that the best thing ever? I love Mick Fleetwood.
That's funny.
He's just in this episode as an assassin in Fishman.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall, this is a great sample platter of an episode. The Dixon stuff is funny. The way that Picard is like, is this also the one where he's like, can you guys fix the holodeck so it's not scary? I don't want to like have to shoot people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
He says my favorite line, which is encapsulates what's good about this season of TNG, where he says he wants more ambiance, less substance.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, give me
nothing
that.
but vibes. Only vibes.
That's what I'm looking for, vibes here, guys.
It's exclusively what I need. Yeah, I loved all of that, and then I just loved Oksana getting in there and not knowing what a holodeck is, and she's like, "Guys, I'm gonna fucking marry this hologram," and they're like, "This works out great for us."
Yeah.
The Betazoids quadruple their sex drive, if not more, after a certain age. They have like a reverse menopause.
Yeah, I like that Riker is with Deanna, and she's like, I told Riker that we quadruple our sex drive, and he's like, yeah. And she's like, if not more. And he's like, whoa, you didn't tell me that. And then he just starts like grinning.
Yeah.
Whenever Jonathan Frakes does that Riker grin, it's great.
My pants they slip a little bit.
Yeah.
I think this is an A or an S tier episode. It's really freaking fun. It's
really fun.
All killer, no filler, in my opinion. I could watch Majel Barrett make Picard feel awkward all day long. I could watch Data be a bad wingman. When Picard wants to make the date end, so he's like, Data, come in here and tell me long stories about your engineering adventures.
Yeah.
Woof.
Yeah. And also, shout out to the Starfleet, like, dress outfits. Pretty good.
Yeah, I wish they just wore
look cool.
those.
And I like that we got a little objectification of Picard when Oksana was like looking at his legs, like, oh, you got some nice legs in those dress tights there, fella. That was fun. I think it's an A tier episode.
Okay. I was really glad that this was the first one I got to show a buddy, because it was like,
Yeah.
we could have very easily just gone a stinker and be like, wow, this is boring. And I was worried at the beginning, and then as soon as Oksana got on, I was like, oh boy. I don't understand why. I said this in season 1. I don't understand why the fans don't like her. Some of them don't like her. She's very funny. She makes everybody wildly uncomfortable. She's probably lying, I realized, when she's like, oh, Picard keeps thinking naughty thoughts about me. She could be lying just to make him feel bad.
Yeah.
Which is
I
much
think she
funnier.
might just be fucking with him.
Oh, I love her so much. Major Barrett.
Yeah.
A gift. Let's talk about the emissary. We have conflicting opinions on this one.
Potentially. What's your deal with this one?
Well, first of all, a half Klingon woman, half human, is the kind of thing that absolutely 100% activated some sort of kink in hundreds of thousands of young boys everywhere. They're like, I like girls, but also I think I like Klingons now. Meanwhile, I'm an intellectual, and I discovered that when I first saw Worf. And like,
okay,
it's really cool that the Klingons have this much like development only 2 seasons into the show, especially when you remember that in season 1 they were white people in black and brown face with Fu Manchu mustaches. Like, they fixed Klingons. Now they like have interracial drama about being mixed race and like how marriage ceremonies should work and cultural differences. Like, I was mostly goofing when I said this one's bad, but actually good. I think it's just like, it makes me uncomfortable when Worf is like, so we're married now, right? But it's supposed to make you uncomfortable because it sucks for her, for the woman that's here.
Yeah.
Kalar is her name. I want to see more. I want to see more of Riker having girlfriends. If like Picard has like
of Worf having girlfriends.
Yeah, sorry, yes. I want to see Worf having girlfriends. Picard has like had his girlfriends or whatever before, but Worf needs more girlfriends.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked all the interactions between, what'd you say her name was?
Kalar.
I liked all the interactions between her and Worf, to see Worf kind of on the back foot, and see him overcome with, because we have only ever seen Worf horny as like a gag before.
Yeah.
And this episode takes it seriously and is like, okay, this guy, he caught feelings. He you know, is trying to look tough, but he really likes this girl, and now she's shooting down his proposal. I thought that was good. I don't remember a thing about like the conflict of this. Again,
it's what I was just
besides that.
It's what I was just saying, right? When you like are interested in the beginning 20, 30 minutes of the episode, I never remember the last 15.
Yeah.
And so the same thing here. They like trick some Klingons. Kalar and Worf work together, and they trick some other Klingons, and it's like, good job, you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like her. And seeing like if a woman in a capsule just drops on the Enterprise, what the hell do we do about that?
Yeah.
Is really interesting. And also that she's like Starfleet important. And there's like something to be said about how like Starfleet will only allow you to be a Klingon dignitary if you're half Klingon. I'm sure they actually have full Klingon dignitaries, but like she is kind of elevated as like, she's someone we can talk to. And there's like something going on there with the racial metaphor that I find kind of interesting. And then just there's a part that could have been really subtle where Troy and Kalar are talking, and they could have bonded in a really like personal way. She's like, but then instead of being subtle, Kalar's like, we both have parents who are, we're both mixed race. You're half Betazoid. I'm half Klingon. You must have grown up like I did, trapped between cultures. And then Troy's just like, yes, I was. Anyways, bye. And it's like, you just have to, I wanted them to like actually talk and not just acknowledge that they're coming from a similar background. But that's that one. That's the emissary. I think it's between a B and an A for me.
Yeah, I think B, just because I don't remember much about it. Yeah.
She's good though. She's good in it. We're winding down here, folks. Peak performance.
Nah.
The part where he plays chess, the fake chess, is good.
That game, Stratagema.
Yeah, Stratagema.
That game looks really fun.
I'd play it.
Yeah, and I love that the resolution is Data trolling him by purposefully tying. It's pretty fun. and then saying I busted him up, and everyone's like, yeah,
Yeah,
screw
you
that
busted him
guy.
up.
Yeah.
I don't know why the Ferengi are in this. I think it's just so they could have Armin Shimmerman be in season 2. It's fine that the Ferengi, because it's like they're doing an exercise where Riker has to take in away teams, similar to how Wesley did, but now he's on a ship, and they have to fix the ship and then attack and then trick the Enterprise. Wesley like sneaks some material back and forth.
Yeah, it's like a strategic exercise to keep them sharp or something like that.
Yeah, but then the Ferengi actually show up, and they both have to fight. And the Ferengi are like, "Why are you fighting each other? Tell us, or we're gonna kill one of your ships."
Yeah,
it's fine. I want to see more Zach Dorn, the guy, the strategist guy,
the cheeky guy. I like that guy.
Also, there's like some good Picard Riker stuff that like suggests to me a ship brewing that I need to see more of between Picard and Riker.
Yes, agreed.
It's not as iconic as Kirk and Spock. That's like literally one of the first ships of all time. But it's there. There's a part where Picard is like, damn, he's so good at kicking my ass, that I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I love the guy is like, Riker, I can't stand that guy. He's so jovial. And Picard's like, that's why everyone loves him, you jerk. Riker is the coolest guy I've ever met in my life.
Don't ever say that, cold Rami. Who are you? You don't know Riker like I know him.
Yeah.
I think this falls into a C tier for me, though, because Cole Rami's not that interesting, and I don't care about the Ferengi. There's like no particular thing I care about. Although I just, at this point, I'm like, I like the characters. I like seeing them do things.
Yeah.
It's fine. They shoot the other ship so that the Ferengi think it's being blown up, but it actually warps last second, which shouldn't really work. I don't know the mechanics of that, but whatever, it works. And then, yeah, Data beats Kolrami by doing the stalemate thing, and he busted him up. It's a C for me.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the much-aligned Season 2 finale, Shades of Grey. Ugh. So,
how do you rank a clip show episode? Riker's like infected by a thing, and we're looking at his memories, and that's the whole episode.
Everything before it was a clip show was pretty good. I was like, oh, I like this footage. I like Troy actually worried about like him dying and stuff.
Yeah. She says Imzadi for the first time since the pilot of the show, which is great.
I'm like, oh, here we go. And then it's a full clip show. Like there's barely any archival, any new footage.
Yeah.
And I read the production, and it was like writer's strike plus the network was like, instead of usually these shows have a week to produce an episode. They were like, you guys have 3 days, make a finale. They're like, okay, we have some old footage, and there was like one guy who's credited in the episode as like the researcher who found all the. Because remember, this is the 80s, so you had to like dig through old VHS tapes to find the old footage.
Mm-hmm.
And they just hashed together some stuff, and they're like, here's the scary memories, here's the horny memories, and
I wish that they had reversed it.
Horny memories save the day.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. But they were too cowardly.
This one has a 3.4 on IMDb. I get it. It's not good. There's nothing here.
I think it's bad, but actually good.
I think that's actually the correct rating. Because we get to do that, and that doesn't actually make us have to commit to a letter rating. Yeah. But like,
it's fun to see a montage of Riker's boners or whatever you said before.
Yeah. It's not a very good production, though.
There's some campy value to it, but yeah.
And I can get past that and understand that shows are made by people on time crunches from networks, and that's great. But man, I would have liked all of this momentum from season 2 ending in a like exciting climactic finish.
Yeah, definitely.
I would have greatly preferred that to Shades of Grey, but like,
yeah,
I didn't despise it. I'm just absolutely never gonna watch it again. I have no reason to. That's it, though, folks. I will make the tier list available again in the show notes for people. But our only S rank episode for season 2 is The Measure of a Man, and our only F rank is The Child. So overall, we leaned heavily into B and C with a couple of A and Ds. And
pretty consistent season, I think.
Yeah. I mean, literally, if you look at our chart, it's like a perfect arrow with bad but actually good, holding up the line.
Yeah.
So I think this is overall a much better season than season 1.
Mhm.
I like the high, like you said, the highs are higher. I could be persuaded that the lows are higher, but I think that the lows are about the same, honestly. I just think season 1 is not as bad as we even remember it being. Like, the further I get from it, I really want to remind myself, like, no, it wasn't that bad. It was definitely bad.
I don't think it was like horrible, but I do think we had more episodes that were bad but actually good, and more episodes that were D's and F's.
Yeah. Than this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we just even compared it to our tier list, this season was more consistent. That there's like a stronger kind of average episode than season 1.
Yeah. I'll even make this I'll put this in our docs so that the next time we look at old docs we can say, like, how did we tier the seasons, make that convenient for us. But that's season 2 of TNG. Final thoughts, Magellan?
I am gonna really try. I mean, I'm not gonna hold myself to this too hard and embarrass myself, but I think for season 3 I want to space it out more, and watch it, a couple a week to try to let every episode breathe, because I think there are episodes here that I just didn't let breathe, or I wasn't able to appreciate them because they were so kind of reminiscent of each other when watching them all in a row. Right. So yeah, I'm interested to see Dr. Crusher come back. Do we want to talk about like what we're looking forward to or thinking about?
Yeah. But just like concluding thoughts about specifically season 2 before we do that.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I don't really know what I have to say about it. I think what this season demonstrates is TNG is stronger in its character work than it is in its like society work. And I don't know if this season is really better than season 1 when it does like kind of, here's what's happening on this planet. Oh, this group of aliens is acting really stupid or really weird. It kind of has the same problems as season 1 of TNG. It just is like, well, we'll ignore those types of plots more. So I would like to see it get better at those types of plots as a show. But also, I think what we got was really great shuffling around of characters, great interactions and relationships between characters, really strong introductions to the ensemble that meshed well with everybody else. It was just a fun show to spend some time with.
Absolutely. And then just for myself, I really love this. I love this experiment that we're doing with like how to appreciate a season of television, because we've spent the last like 6+ years doing episodes of television, and it's a really different way to approach it when I'm like, I don't need to take notes on every single moment of this because they're never going to come up. And what that actually led to, and also like measuring out the pace a little bit more for myself, was I have like fonder specific memories, like I was saying earlier, of all of the episodes, because each of them got a night. And so it's like, okay, I have for the rest of my life, or at least as long as my long-term memory will last, I remember what Loud as a Whisper made me feel. I remember how Manhunt made my friend laugh. I remember like laughing at the makeup in Samaritan Snare, or being annoyed by Shades of Grey. Like all of that stuff is like crystal clear, because like the show is just good to watch now, and it's not something I feel obligated to watch. I'm like in love with this series at this point. And so that's why it makes me excited to like look forward to, now we're past what the fandom has called the rough parts, which is funny to say, and then we're into what people call the golden era of TNG. So next time on TrekChatz, we're going to be covering season 3. What are some things you're looking forward to, first of all?
I think I'm looking forward to more of what's been working about this one. So give me more Data and Worf stuff, because you know how to do it. I'd love to see Deanna Troi do more stuff. I don't know. I don't have confidence that this show is going to write her as well as I want her to be written, but I think Deanna Troi is really interesting, and I want more from her. I'm curious to see what it looks like to bring back Dr. Crusher. Give me more Guinan. Have Guinan talk to O'Brien. Come on.
Yes.
You
that,
cowards.
subtle detail that Pulaski hates the transporter because it makes her nauseous, and she hates her organs being reassembled. And so in the second to last episode, I think it is, she like gets teleported. She's like, ugh, gross. And then he's like, where are you going again? And she's like, do not. He's like, I'm just kidding. I love O'Brien as a little troll. That's fantastic.
Yeah. But just keep giving me scenes where Picard is asking for everybody's opinions, and he forgives people for making mistakes, and that's all I really need from TNG.
Is there anything you know about season 3?
Well, we've seen the finale, so
yep.
That's
John and I have watched Best of Both Worlds parts 1 and 2. So we've seen the end of season 3 and beginning of season 4 because we watched the beginning of DS9.
Yeah.
That technically means I was going to say we have fewer episodes, but TNG season 2 got a short order because of the writer's strike. So this was 22. Mm-hmm. Season 3 is 25, but really we only have 24 new episodes to watch. New for us. Mm-hmm. Which is still a lot. That's beefy. And so if that's all
I
good
am
stuff,
excited to rewatch that episode now, having more context, because when we watched it prior to DS9, we didn't find it that compelling, I don't think. But now feeling a deeper attachment to Picard, and I won't spoil the episode, but feeling a deeper attachment to Picard and the rest of the crew, I'm curious to see if that makes me feel more affected by the events of the finale.
And like Riker and Data and like everybody who's involved in the plot of that one. Because of the way we do this, you're going to stop at the end of part 1 and then not watch part 2 for probably a month or two. So we'll get a break, which is similar to what people got. Not as long, though. Things I know about season 3. People love this season. We get some new outfits. We get another outfit update. So people get the Starfleet uniform changes to a more broad-shouldered one, which I'm excited for. I believe the theme song changes, if I'm not mistaken. Not like drastically, but like the visuals of it change. Yeah, do you want to just like watch this for a sec with me?
Sure.
Okay, great. This is our first time seeing this, folks. This is the TNG season 3 opening. Mitchell and I are watching it. I'm going to just sync it up with the audio. So are you watching on my side?
Yep.
Okay, great. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. All right. Planets. I love these new planets. These graphics look fine.
Space.
Stellar.
The final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Fancy.
Pretty cute.
Yeah. I love a graphical update. I wonder if we get a new cast while we're here. But yeah, season 3 of
Frakes,
LeVar Burton, my king, Michael Dorn.
Yeah.
Everyone's back. Gates
McFadden is back. Nice to see. Marina Sirtis, of course. Brent Spiner. Will Wheaton.
I don't know how much more Wesley we're gonna get. I know he leaves the show at some point.
Oh, really?
Eventually. I don't think he makes level 7.
Oh, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. I think he like goes to college. Gene. For all my problems with Gene Roddenberry, he did create an incredible legacy. Did we miss anything, Magellan? Is there anything else you wanted to like bring up before we call it a close?
Nope, I don't think so.
All right, folks. Well, that brings us to our plug zone. Just to pay the bills here, we got to talk about what we have going on. Magellan, first off, where can people find you on the podcast sphere?
You can also listen to me on another podcast called Super Smash Echoes, which is a monthly video game club podcast centered around Super Smash Brothers is kind of the core thing. We play games that are the games of characters in the Smash Bros. Franchise or games inspired by those games and talk about them. It's me and my friend Justin, who's been on chats quite a bit. So Super Smash Echoes, check it out. Alan, what about you?
Fabulous. Yes, I am on the Hunter's Quorum, which is a Monster Hunter podcast I host with my friend Six Detmar from Scanline Media. You can find that on scanlinemedia.com. Monster Hunter, it's a video game franchise from Japan where you beat up monsters and craft weapons from their bodies. And we talk about the monsters of that franchise, what makes them cool, what makes them not cool, and what the experience of playing it is like. Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak is coming out literally a day from this recording, so we're probably going to have a whole episode about Rise, and Monsters of Rise will encompass that. So check out the Hunter's Quorum where you listen to podcasts. I would like to now take it to the Chats plug zone. If you're listening to this on the TrekChatz feed, just a heads up. First of all, that's awesome. Welcome. Second of all, we have two other main podcast feeds. If you go to the Chats, a television podcast feed found everywhere. That includes TrekChatz, the other show I'm going to talk about, and Chats, which is our main show where we watch 2 episodes of called classic TV shows every week. We are currently covering The Leftovers over there. So it's kind of like a TV book club where we have a lot of fun, and that's every week. So you get a lot of us if you're not sick of us once every 3 months. We also have Should You Watch, which is a podcast where we watch currently airing or just finished airing TV shows and talk about them and whether or not they're worth your binge time, your precious binge time. But otherwise, if you'd like to get a hold of us, you can beam over a message to chatspod@gmail.com. That's CHATZPOD. If you have Twitter, we are at chatspod on there. And if you have Reddit, we are on r/chatspod. We have a community-run subreddit where friend of the podcast, aforementioned Nick, is running Throw Chats Thursdays, where we listen to old episodes of Chats because we've been doing this for a long time, and we talk about the old ones. If you like TrekChatz and want to hear us talk about more Star Trek, rate us on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. That's how the algorithm gets us out to all the wonderful Trekkies out there. We have a Patreon if you want to support our work financially. We greatly, greatly appreciate you going over there. Patreon.com/chatspod. We have tiers at $1, $3, and $5 a month. $1 a month is your sort of thank you and your I want a little bit of content tier. 3 is your I would like to get all of your content from years back and also help you decide what you're going to watch and do every month, whether it's watch a movie or talk about food or whatever, or pilot shows. And then $5 a month gets you all of those things, as well as a thank you at the end of every main feed Chats show. So as of today, thank you to our $5 patrons: Arthur, Chloe, Jen, Kat, Lee, Magellan's mom, Marcus, Marin, Michael, Nick and Pat of the Brothers at Infinite War, Fendon, Six, and Stefan. All things Chats can be found at chatspod.com, and our podcast art on the main Chats feed, if you listen to that, is done by Camille Strader. I don't need to plug her here, but I choose to plug her here because she is awesome. And that's what we got, folks. Before we take it home, since this is replacing Chats this week on the main Chats feed, over there we do something called Chatsums, where every week we recommend people something to experience between now and the next episode of the show. So Magellan, what do you got for Chatsums this week?
My Chatsum this week, last night I went out with some coworkers of mine to a trivia night. So if you haven't gone to trivia in a while, it's pretty fun. I would say go do that. We won.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow, humble. How tasty is that humble pie you're eating over there? Jeez.
Yummy. There were only like 6 teams at the place that we went to, but we won. We came within 2 points of the record for this particular trivia night. We were 2 points shy. I almost would have gotten those 2 points. This is the question that I was the most upset I got wrong. I want to see if you know off the top of your head.
Okay.
What is the last name of the family in the Beverly Hillbillies?
Well, I have no... Wait. I don't... Is it the... I want to say like the Cletuses. I don't know. I've never
close.
seen it.
That's close.
Clayton.
You're pretty close. I was trying... The reason I was so upset is there's a song in the Weird Al film UHF, one of my favorite movies of all time. which is a parody of Money for Nothing, and it's about the Beverly Hillbillies. And I was singing it to myself because I knew at some point Weird Al says the name of the family, and the part that I could remember and then I couldn't remember anymore was right before the verse where he says their name. So if I just remembered it, we would have tied the all-time record at this trivia night. It's Clamp It.
What?
So for the rest of my life, I'm going to remember it's the Clamp It family. But trivia is pretty fun. You should go do it.
I've always been interested, and I will try to do that in the near future.
You've never been?
No, sir. I know people who've done trivia, including you, but I have.
We got to go. Next time I'm in town, we got to get the squad together. We got to go do a trivia. The squad that you roll with would love trivia.
Yeah, I think the squad would they be good, though? That's all I really care about.
The squad that I'm thinking of, if we're talking about the same squad, would be really good.
Okay, great. You know, I was just looking at best episodes of TNG, by the way, and I forgot there's another famous one in season 3 that we should be excited for.
Famous.
I'm not gonna tell you which one, so you can discover it organically.
Great.
Do you want my chatsum?
I would love your chatsum. What is it?
I don't have one because I've been watching a lot of Star Trek is the main thing, and all the other shows I've been watching, I've chatsummed. All the other books I've been reading, I've chatsummed. And I've been playing Monster Hunter a lot in my free time, so it's like I would be without a paddle, but as of yesterday, DNF Duel just came out on Steam. Are you Yeah, you're not familiar with this. I'm asking. It's the leading question. I know you're not.
I'm not.
Dungeon Fighter Online was a Korean MMO that's been popular for the past like 15 years. It's pretty good actually. It's got some like fighting game mechanics. It's a 2D MMO. Arxis, very popular anime fighting game developer, just put out DNF Duel, which is a fighting game based on the MMO. And it's an anime fighter. It's 2D, but I just gotta recommend the experience of learning to play fighting games. I think when they're new and fresh, and you can play online with people who don't know what they're doing, just like you don't, there's nothing better than that, man. It's really fun. That's my version of Strategema, I think. Is just like, hey, what is this? How do I block? Okay, great. I'm learning how to block. And you only really get to have that specific experience playing a new one because you can just throw yourself into the fray with everybody else. But I don't know. DNF Duel, not an amazing game, but specifically the experience of like playing a new fighting game before they patch out all the broken combos and learning how to get good at it with everyone else is a one of a kind experience. So that's my broad spectrum one. But that's what we got. Jalen, thank you so much for being the Kalar to my Worf. Because you're beautiful and I want us to get married because we keep fighting.
Okay.
Oh, that was easy. All right, well, I guess we're married now.
For sure.
We'll be back in October 2022, folks, for Season 3 of TNG. So get your comments and your watch time in by then. I forgot to mention, if you follow us on Patreon, you also get access to that Discord I talked about where I probably will stream more TNG. Again, you can just ask us to, whatever. But yeah, TNG Season 3, October 2022. See you all then. Engage.
Engage.
Bye, everyone. Love you.
Wait.